Want to take a ride? From the high desert and the great American Southwest, exclusively on Sirius XM Radio, this is Dark Matter with your host, Art Bell. Now, here's Art.
Extraterrestrial radio. Actually, hi, everybody. How you doing? It's going to be a great night, as long as we can make connection with Australia. And if we can't, then I'm going to play with Skype. Because guess what? I got Skype working just perfectly. Actually, Paul and I did. Producer Paul. Cool dude. And now we've got audio going into Skype as well as out. And what that means is when you talk, you're talking on the air when you connect with me on Skype. And you'll be able to hear everything happening on this end. In other words, if I've got a guest on, you'll hear the guest. If I'm the one here on doing open lines or something like that, you'll hear me. Now, Skype is being reserved for people outside of the United States and Canada. At least at this point. Now, I may use it as a special line at some point, and then I'll open it up for everybody. But this will give people, you know, somewhere else in the world a chance to get through. You guys, when the lines are open, they're all going. Blinkety blink blink, all going. Nobody could get through. So, especially if you're dialing from, I don't know, Schmaltzvania, somewhere in there. Really hard to get through. That's the deal. So, if you want to call on Skype and you're outside the United States, I'm willing to take your call virtually right now. It'd be cool to get a call from Britain or Japan or Australia or anywhere, I guess, in the world. I know my Aussie friend probably will call. Now, here's the deal. My name on Skype is Art. Remember the dot. Art.Bell, B-E-L-L. And that's it. 51. Got that. 51. Art.Bell, 51. And then you call me on Skype. You can even do it from handheld phones. It'll probably sound better than, cell phone lines. So if you're outside the country somewhere and you want to call, start now. All right, there was an earthquake in the Philippines last night when we were on the air. It was rough. Very rough. 7.2 or 4 or whatever, depending on whose scale you're looking at. It was in the Bohol, Cebu area, and there was a lot of damage. A lot of old churches went down in this earthquake, and it was close to my wife's family, but they're okay. I mean, relatively close, if you look at Philippines. Almost moved to Cebu, so I sit here wondering if I had done that, whether my house would be down all around me right now. Those poor people. And poor us, too. Our government is shut down. They're threatening now not to pay the money we owe to the people we owe it to, the Chinese and others, and that'd be really bad news for the Chinese and us and a lot of other people, and it actually would be a financial disaster. They won't raise the debt ceiling. Default is what it's called, and it's horrible. Horrible. Getting awful damn close now. They're really playing with fire over there, playing with fire, I think. I don't know how many of you are CNN people, but I just happened to be watching today as Jake Tapper was coming on, giving credit where it's due. He started his program and he said, you remember that, well, referring to the day before when, they had a deal. You remember that when they had a deal? Jake Tapper said, you remember that light we all yesterday saw at the end of the tunnel? Well, it looks like we're all standing on the tracks. I thought, man, that was funny. What a way to open your show. Remember that light we all saw yesterday at the end of the tunnel? Looks like we're all standing on the tracks. Very good. Every now and then there's a gem, huh? All right. Now I'm going to give you reasons to go to artbell.com right now. Artbell.com. And here they are. Number one, we have got a video up there. It's truth or trash time, but oh, God, this is a good video. It really is. It's of a poor man about to be hit by a truck, but saved by an alien. This thing will rock your world. Now, let me instruct you before you go, or maybe you're already on the way. When you get to it, you start watching it. Please stick with it. It repeats many times, and normally I don't go for the repeats. When you've seen it, right? But here, you, as they slow it down, you're going to be able to see the most amazing thing you've ever seen, because the video otherwise is very fast, too fast to see. So stick with it. That's one reason to go to artbell.com. Another is, I think, pretty sure we've got the new video. Do you remember the old deal when you'd fold the $20 bill just the right way? And you'd see all kinds of things, right? Well, now the new $100 bill is out, and the folders of the world have already figured it out. So I think we've got that video up there for you to see. It starts out with the $20 bill, but then it moves on to the brand new $100 bill. Oh, my God, the stories it tells. Straight to the camps we go. So, oh, and the store, Arts Parts, we've got a store up there. A lot of people getting Arts Parts. That sounds a little, I don't know. You want one of Art's Parts, that's a coffee mug or a T-shirt, or actually the store is expanding and there's new stuff up there, so if you want to get something, go on up there. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed. So let me see, where are we? We've got a really good show coming up tonight. Jim Sparks. Jim, right? A lot of you don't, actually, and we're going to retell some of Jim's story because... And some of the longtime listeners have got to understand this. There are 27 million subscribers to Sirius XM. Not just those of you who have come over here from my show. But altogether, that's a lot of people. And a lot of people have never heard the show. So we're going to retell his story and plus, and add more to it. Now, speaking of shows, by the way, tomorrow night, we are going to have on Tobias McGriff. And I want you to stay tuned for that one. I mentioned Tobias because, well, here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. He's going to be a great guest. But, we just noticed that Tobias McGriff suddenly got booked on the other show for tonight. Tonight! What's up with that? And we thought, well, it might have been just some horrible scheduling mistake, right? Some terrible misreading of each other's schedules or, something like that. And I can understand, folks, if you want to go and listen to Tobias tonight over there, nothing we can do about it. In fact, actually, we sort of delved into it a little bit and looked into it a little bit because it seemed so awkward. So very, very awkward. And, it turns out it's the doggonedest thing. Apparently there are coincidences because Tobias, well, he got scheduled the very day after we posted our schedule. I think we posted on Friday. Pretty sure we posted on Friday. And the very next day, Tobias got scheduled. Just incredible, huh? Actually, tacky. Yeah, but, again, I understand if you want to, you want to go over and hear Tobias there instead of here tomorrow. Oh, but before you do that, I spoke to Tobias on the phone this evening, and you know what? He said, hey, Art, I'm really looking forward to being on the air with you tomorrow night, and I'm going to hold all the good stuff for your show. I'm quoting Tobias exactly here. He's holding all the good stuff for our show. Yeah, if you want to hear the other stuff, well, fine. If you want the good stuff, maybe over here tomorrow. Oh, and then there's one last thing, and just one last thing. It's been a hard day for me. I mean, on top of this Tobias thing, if it's not one thing, it's another, right? I received an email. Somebody told me that, you know, how George always mentions my name at the end of the show, right? He didn't do it last night. God, it rocked my world. And I didn't know what to think. Dropping my name? Anyway, if he doesn't immediately restore the ritual naming of me at the end of that show, I'm going to begin thanking George at the end of each one of my shows for making Dark Matter This is Dark Matter, ladies and gentlemen, in the nighttime. Jim Sparks will be coming. Oh, no, wait a moment. Wait just a moment. I've got an idea. This isn't appropriate. It's a wonderful song. Actually, you know, that's the #1 song in the entire world. In every survey ever done by anybody, it's #1, and I'm going to play it all the way through one night. I really am. Now, this is better. Raging through the nighttime. Okay, it's been a long, long time. Jim Sparks, a professional in the human abduction scenario. Think of that line. Jim Sparks is a professional abductee. He's a lecturer and author of the most popular book, The Keepers. He was raised in South Florida, educated in business. His abductions actually began in '88, and I've done a number of interviews with him. He is riveting. At that time, he was living in Houston, working on as a successful land developer. You know, he was good. He didn't have to become an abductee. Initially an unwilling abductee, in fact, his experiences transformed once he was able to put aside the rage, and there'd be a lot of that, right, if you were abducted. And he overcame his fear. He began to understand he was encountering highly intelligent, advanced beings from other worlds. Jim had been completely conscious of his face-to-face experiences. It's lucky for us, or he wouldn't be able to tell us about them, right? Giving him clear memories, amazing insight in the last 2 decades that he's been dealing with ETs. He's witnessed amazing sciences. He knows there's a plan to elevate ourselves to better understand what these beings are about, so we all might evolve. Today he realizes all of us, including him, are not alone. Many others have gone through similar experiences. Whether fortunate or unfortunate, he differs from most abductees in that he has total recall of his experiences with these beings from other regions and dimensions of time and space. His goal is to explain the agenda of these beings and the message they bring to humanity. Jim is coming to us all the way from Australia, we hope. Jim, welcome to the program if you're there.
Hey, Art, it's great to be here.
Wow, not a half-bad connection.
No, not too bad at all from the distance, huh?
Where are you in Australia?
I'm Southside Perth.
Oh, so that puts you, I wonder how many miles. I bet about 10,000 miles away from me.
Yeah, anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000, depending on where you're at in the States, sure. Long boat.
Well, I think it's more than 7,000 because it's like 7,700 or something like that to Philippines, and you got to keep going to get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You know what? You probably didn't hear it in the beginning of the show, Jim, but we're on Sirius XM now. Now, Sirius XM has like 27 million subscribers. So a whole bunch of loyal people have come over, who are my listeners, Jim. But then we've got these like 27 million people, many of whom are hearing this show for the first time, and they never heard you and they never heard your story. So, we're going to have to start from the beginning if we can.
Yeah, sure. That'd be fine.
All right. So before 1988, you were just in business, a family guy. You were not a ufologist. You weren't following UFOs. You weren't even interested, right?
Yep, I had no interest in the subject whatsoever. None whatsoever. Except, like anybody else would. I mean, the UFO I thought was possible. And, I never thought there were occupants, and I didn't give it a lot of thought at that time at all. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so take me, if you would please, to the first thing that happened to you. I mean, how it began.
Well, what attributes them to be so difficult to understand. And when the beginning, which is important that we go to the beginning, definitely the early stages, because it makes more sense as we go along. And
okay.
But there's something about them. There's something about the human condition that I would just like to go over with first before we get into the beginning stages of what had happened, that make it so difficult for us to understand them and to be what they are. And so some of these things that I'll go over, you can probably see why it's that way.
Okay.
When you think about it, we're 90%, better than 90% of my interaction has been with what are commonly referred to as grays. And I've got, nearly 100%, if not 100% total recall, as you mentioned earlier. All the experiences have been face-to-face. But just a summary of why they're so, in a sense, non-approachable. And so if you see this picture, for starters, they're 100% telepathic. And I've never seen one.
I'm going to stop you right away, Jim, and I'm going to say, just on the off chance, there are not people on our channel, 104, that know what a gray is. Would you describe for my audience as best as you can a gray?
Sure. It's a species, it's a non-human intelligent living being from another world. Where it may be, I can't be certain, but there's a species known as grays. And there's two types. There's the ones that are about 3.5 feet tall, and these are really worker beings. And these are the ones that most abductees talk about. They have very large heads, teardrop-shaped head, with the huge eyes, the stuff you see a lot on television, with, the no nose and the thin mouth, and they're very short. And the reason I say they're worker beings, because through all the years of these experiences and interactions I've had, you find out that they're part robotic, and I believe them to be part biological. And those are usually reported to be as the aliens. But over time, I've learned they just work for the quote-unquote grays. The grays are humanoid in a sense, in a way, but they're not human at all. Now, these are the ones we're talking to specifically. And
okay, and they're called grays because they are in fact gray color, right?
They look gray to me most of the time. I've never seen any other color but that color, a grayish, a light grayish color. So that's why I would refer to them as grays. And
would you, Jim? Would you call it skin, or does it have a different texture than human skin? Do you know?
I would say it looks thicker. Well, it looks thicker than human skin,
okay. And
it is grayish in color, almost sandy-like looking in a sense, the texture of it.
All right. So these are the beings, these smaller gray ones that your initial contact was with.
Yeah, the smaller ones are the ones that usually come in and escort you or take you, but they go back to what a gray is. Their heads are bigger than normal. Their eyes are bigger than normal, but they're not as big as the giant teardrop eyes that, people see, commonly referred to as, aliens. They have they have two holes for a nose and, very thin lips. And they're usually no taller than 4 feet, sometimes a little taller, maybe 4.5 at the most. And as I was saying, they're 100% telepathic. And so they never speak. And this is what makes it difficult. So going into that, they have a tremendous amount of technology. They're leaps and bounds ahead of us. They can be invisible. That's another thing they can do. They can create a field where there's invisibility. They have the ability to work in one dimension, have their working essence in one dimension, and part of their working essence here and themselves in another dimension, so occupying the same space and time, and all of that is a science. They can pass through solid matter. This is all technology. This is all science. All their technology is primarily thought activated. So what they think operates the technology, the machinery, whatever it may be. And,
well, Jim, after you described them that way, when you first described them, I thought, hey, why not just haul back, make a fist and knock one of these things clean across the room because they're little. They're 4 feet. I mean, so have at them. But the way you describe them and what they can do, has not happened.
Well, as we go into the story, there'll be a part of it where, because, in the early years I was very obstinate and, it was trauma at first, negative at first, and then it developed something where actually I thought about doing just that, and I'll go over to it. So it's an interesting story, and I think you'll like it. Sure you will. And, not to mention, they can travel time. Now, I'm just going to this part right here. And up to this point, you can kind of see why it's kind of difficult to say, hi, let's sit around and have a cup of coffee. We're telepathic. We can do this. We can work in dimensions. We got thought-activated technology. And then, you have beings that can think 10 to 100 times faster than we do. And they have to slow way, way, way down just to communicate with us. And I think another thing that's makes it very difficult to be around them and why it takes time to know what they are. And that's what, we'll be talking about, is the fact that when they communicate with you, they communicate to your real self, not our facade self. And this is what I mean by a facade self. When you're out in the street or you're out in the city and you're out around strangers, nobody knows who you are. And when you're communicating with people, you're talking to the shell of you because you can't let them inside because that's the way we operate. And with them, they can't see that. So it means no privacy. So when they communicate with you, they go right to the root of who you are, right to the core.
I'm sure that's got to be so unnerving, completely unnerving for you. For somebody to be, it's bad enough somebody can read your facial expressions and your movements and your body language, but oh my God, if they could read your mind directly, you don't have all.
Oh man. You got it. You got it on the head. And it's terrible because, in the beginning it is, but you're going to learn how their culture is as I speak, because there's absolutely no privacy. Anything you've ever done in your life is on the table. Anything. Some little thing you've done as a child, something maybe you're not proud of, or things that you're happy about are right there. You can't hide them. And I thought it was the most, again, horrific thing. And it took time to learn the fact that culture is like that, or that species is like that, and nobody cares. Because you know me, I know you. You can't hide nothing from me. I can't hide anything from you, and nobody's hurting each other in that case. So
if the gray was sitting there smiling at you after reading your mind, kind of like, man, I know what you did last summer.
Yep, and I know what you did.
Holy moly!
That's
all right.
Turn. Yeah. So that's now these in the beginning. These are the things that I was confronted with, and so. How do you get through all these things? They can't come and say, hi again, let's have a cup of coffee and let me tell you what I am. That's why they're so separate, but yet they can be so close. And anyway, that's what led to 1988 and as we're saying that, to rehash so we know what's going on and how it happened. And for me, I was just, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a businessman, and I was taking care of business that occupied all my time. It wasn't anything I was interested in until it started off until one evening, it started off as a dream. For me, it was just a dream. And it became a reoccurring dream, and it was the same dream.
That's kind of worrisome, Jim. If it was a reoccurring dream, I sometimes have reoccurring dreams, and other people do too. They're not exactly normal, but now you've scared me, because if I began having a reoccurring dream about this after hearing you, I don't know.
Well, it started, to me, I thought it was a dream, and it wasn't a dream. And it led into the abduction scenarios, but everything has been face-to-face in the flesh, where it's not dream-like at all. But in the beginning, they were gentle with me. And one thing, that I've learned over the years is you got to get over your fears. You're going to be afraid. There's no doubt about it, because it's so different. But you always keep in your mind, they're not going to kill you. They're not going to hurt you. And that's the stand I always took, because I always came back in one piece fine, except I was traumatized in those early years. And it went the same way in the beginning. In the first few weeks or months, it was a dream that something was coming into my bedroom, or something or some things, and they were escorting me out of my bed. I didn't see them at first. Down the hallway and into the guest room, and then we would walk across the guest room and walk right through the window.
All right. Now, you were at what age at this point, Jim?
I was in my early 30s.
In your early 30s. All right.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
So were you married?
Yes, I was.
All right. Then I presume, I don't want to pry, but I presume you were sleeping next to your wife, eh?
Yeah, and that's the thing about abductions, is that they make sure the person that's a person or persons that are around you are out cold. They never know you're taken. So that's just what they do. But, yeah. So they're good. They're good at the science. But, walking through the window was terrible to me. It traumatized me in the dream, or it scared me in this dream, and it kept happening several times until one day it wasn't a dream anymore. I was completely 100% conscious, and they did come into the room, and I did see two worker beings. At the time, I didn't know they were worker beings, and they did escort me through the hallway. And I did walk into the guest bedroom, and here's a ground floor window, and you can't walk through a window. There's a screen, there's glass, there's whatever. It's matter, solid matter. And, at the time I didn't know they could create a field that the laws of physics don't apply because of the sciences they have, and I walked through it. And then,
well, I'm sure you were absolutely terrified, Jim. In other words, they were escorting you. That's bad enough. You've got these alien beings escorting you, and now they escort you through a window. If I can ask, what does it feel like to walk through a window or something solid? You just keep going. It's just like a natural thing. It's like it's a mist, like it's not even there. And then next thing you know, you're outside. And here's what made it really disturbing to me, because, again, this is paranormal. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know they were aliens at the time. I didn't know what these things were. I didn't care what they were at that stage. And so now I'm on the other side. When they took me back, my lawn was manicured real low, and we had these flowers on the lawn. They were little honeysuckle flowers that would stick to the bottom of your feet. And if you walked on the lawn, they would stick to your feet. Anyway, as we would come back, they were on the bottom of my feet. What happened was they put me back in bed. I'd get up in the morning, and I'd be frightened to death, and I was scared. It was different. I didn't know what was going on. And, I went into the guest bedroom, and then right there, to make things even worse, was I could see my foot. I went to the window. I could see my footprints in the lawn from the dew in the morning. And then the flowers, my half of a heel was on one side of the window outside, and the ball of my feet was embedded in the carpet with the flowers stuck to them, and my footprints were coming in through the room with the honeysuckle flowers on them. So obviously there's a window there. There's a glass plate. So that's, bizarre. So it shook me up. And
I tried to keep that to myself as much as possible. I mentioned it to my wife. I was going back to work and doing business, but it was disturbing to me naturally. And then something else happened, which changed the whole face of things even stronger.
Well, all right. Just 1 second. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I'm really sorry to interrupt, but you say you mentioned it to your wife, Jim, and I would like to, if I could, understand how that conversation went. Honey, listen, last night while you were sleeping, I was removed by aliens when walking through the window, solid objects, and so forth and so on. In other words, as you explained all of this to your wife, I really do want to know how she reacted.
She couldn't relate to anything I was saying. She denied it all. She couldn't grasp it. And I was kind of in an awkward state because I was shocked by it. And so that she wasn't relating at all to that situation. So that made it even harder. And so it could be like you imagined. But I was persistent because I'm known to be logical and straightforward and a factual type person. And so when I talk about things to people, whether it be relatives, friends, whatever, in business, whatever, they trust me. Whatever I'm saying is what's happened. And so here I am talking about this weird stuff that I didn't even know what was going on at the time in the early stages. So it was bad. And, then there was another way that's called the easy way, where they escort you to a craft to do what they're going to do. And then there's another way called the hard way, which is even more traumatizing, and which is if a craft is on the ground, they escort you to it the way I just described. If a craft is in the air, then they have to pull you from space, from the air, from your house. And how you get up there is just gut-wrenching. It's a loud, whirling, whipping sound in your head. Your body's paralyzed. You're screaming inside because you can't move. You can't open your eyes, and you're yelling to yourself inside, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. You feel this acceleration like you're going down a roller coaster only 100 times faster. You black out. The next thing you know, you're there. And that's where I found myself.
All right, Jim.
There now.
Right. I've got you. All right. Now, you said there's an easy way and a hard way. I mean, that sounds like a cop question. If you're going to get taken to jail, most cops will say, look, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. I mean, was it like that?
Well, actually, it's the technology. You can picture it's a soft technology that's used, and there's a hard technology not meant to hurt you. It's just meaning that if let's say they land somewhere, and they're coming to your house, they come and escort you, and you're walking, actually, to the craft, and you go on board, and then the scenario begins. So they're on the ground. So that's what I call the easy way. The hard way is this gut-wrenching feeling you get when they're in flight, and they're whizzing by your place, and they literally take you from your home or your car, wherever you may be, into their craft. And that technology is just, they're hauling butt. And they're pulling you on board. And so, but, they have you in a paralyzed state, and, your eyes are closed, you can't see. It's just a gut-wrenching feeling, and the next thing you know, you're there. And then that's what happened the first time, and I didn't even know what there was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know it was aliens. I found myself in this room. I was sitting on a bench-like thing.
All right. I'll tell you what. Hold on, Jim. Hold on. We're going to do a real quick break, so hold it right where you are. We'll get this taken care of, and it sounds like we're sort of moving into a different chapter, so we'll pick up on all this in a moment. This is Dark Matter, raging, and I mean raging, in the nighttime. I'm Art Bell.
Sirius XM Master Switch has been thrown. Skynet is active. Call now before a city you care about disappears behind the Terminator. Save them now by calling 855-REAL-UFO. That's 855-732-5836.
This is Dark Matter. Don't call yet. It's not time yet. God, I love that one. I really do. Before a city you care about disappears behind the Terminator. Sounds terrible, but when you dissect it, it's not so bad. Terminator, comes and goes all the time. It's just the horizon if you actually look it up. All right, back now to Australia, all the way down near Perth, Australia, for Jim Sparks. And Jim, the wonderful thing about Dark Matter is that now we've got about 30 minutes before we have any other break. We can just rock and roll.
All right.
So, continue, pick up where you were, because it was beginning to get a little wild.
Yeah, again, I'm going through years 1 through 6, and, the first 6 years, and they were traumatic, and they were a bit negative because I didn't have a frame of reference. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who they were, and that's why I started off explaining in the beginning that how different they are, and, I wrote that book, I wrote a book, The Keepers,
right.
And I put all of this in, graphic, in all detail, committed to memory, so there's a lot more detail in there.
Sure. And,
anyway, I did something special for your listeners, Art. And so if they go onto my website, it's Jim-Sparks or Jim-Sparks.com.
All right.
And then, all they got to do is see something with your name. They'll know what it means. And, I put something special for them, for your listeners.
You mean like a special deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And anyway, in the beginning, again, here's how I found myself on board for the first time, sitting on a bench, and then in front of me was a table with a screen on it. I was paralyzed all completely through my body. The only thing that could move was my head up and down. And I had my right arm leaning on the table. I could move my right forefinger. And then in front of me was a wall, and it had a screen on that wall. So I call it a wall screen. I call the thing in front of me now a table screen. And that's where I was. So everything was paralyzed. My vocal cords, my head to go up and down, no peripheral vision, and my right hand on this machine, which I didn't know was a teaching machine at the time. And anyway, so if you can imagine finding yourself there, you're in a room that's dimly, it's the light's coming from nowhere, but yet everywhere at the same time. So there's no source, but yet it's emanating from everything.
All right, and one question, sorry to interrupt. It is this, we've got a time lag, so, when you hear my voice, that means I'm trying to say something. To me, Jim, being paralyzed would be all by itself absolutely horrifying, because it's happened a couple times to me in my sleep. I think most people have experienced that. Being paralyzed and conscious is really horrifying, all by itself.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I understand that, and think about it. And here you are conscious, and exactly as you said. And I was allowed my vocal cords so I can yell and scream, and I'm yelling and screaming, who are you, why am I here, what is this, I don't even know what's going on, and I had no clue. And then here you are in this place, and so, frightened to death, horrified, like you said, and now all of a sudden the letter A, the block letter A for our alphabet comes up on this wall screen, what's this A? And next to it was a symbol, and then this telepathic voice, which is the first voice I heard, said, trace the symbol for the letter A. And, again, who are you? Why are you doing this? And, I didn't want to do it. And when I would move my right forefinger, it would make a tracing on the screen in front of me. And
so they allowed you to be unparalyzed enough to move a finger.
Yeah, that's it. And my head up and down. So I can look at this table in front of me, and I can look up at the screen, and that was it. And, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to cooperate with them. I yelled and screamed and did everything. I didn't know what they were.
Sure.
And I realized that, that it was constant pressure on their part. They just would make me uncomfortable until I did it, so I had to stay like that. So that was a frightening thing. And I said at the beginning, this is going to sound pretty negative, and it was, but as it turned out, it evolved into something special. But in the meantime, once I started sketching that letter, then they would let me go home, and I would find myself at home. And, they would the way I left. And now you can imagine what a mess that was and what a mess it made me. I was telling friends about it. They didn't understand. My wife wasn't couldn't understand what was going on. Family, what are you trying to say, And
sure.
So,
all right, here's the question. When they had you trace the letter A next to a symbol, you said, did it dawn on you right away that this was a teaching moment on their part? Because that probably would tend to relax you a little. I mean, it's like they're not going to cut out your liver or do rip out your heart for a sample or something. They're trying to teach you. At least that's a lesser threat than it could have been.
Oh, well, that's something that ended up being, there's no doubt about it, was definitely to teach. In fact, and you got it right. In the beginning, though, I didn't know what it was. I was just more scared of where I was at that time. And, and so even when I got back home, I couldn't cope. It was hard for me to cope. So it was hard for me to go back to business. It was hard for me to, function normally. I was just afraid of them. And, they were doing this to me 2-3 times a week. Every week in those first few months. And so, as you imagine, I tried to get away from them, as feeble as it was at the time. I would get in my car when I would drive. At the time, I was doing business in Texas, and I would drive into Houston, and I would go into a big hotel, Art, and I'd check out a room in the middle thinking they couldn't get me, and I would be abducted. Right. I would drive from state to state.
Oh, boy. But you know what, Jim? These are things that I would do, too, and I think probably anybody that was faced with this would do their damnedest to get away.
And that's exactly right. You got it on the head. And, so, I mean, there's an antidote I have. They come a godzillion miles to get here and pull people, and I'm going to drive a few hundred miles and think I'm going to escape. So, Yeah. And nonetheless, that was hard. And so they were, and they did different kind of, during the course of it, there was emotional experiments. There was different kind of things that took place in these abduction scenarios. And, I would scream, why me? And they would never answer any questions. And, after several months of this, and this alphabet, by the way, I call it an alphabet. It started with the A, like you said, and then it went to B. And I remember at the time I literally cried, going, oh, my God, because it took me so long to get to A. What are we going to do, the whole alphabet? And as it turned out, every time they pulled me, now it's a B, and now it's a C, and there's a symbol for it, and I had to be precise with it. And if I was a bad student, they'd keep me there. Sometimes they would just leave me alone. I got to start seeing them. They were finally getting in my view. And that's where I saw the little worker beings, and that's where I saw the grays. That's how I knew they were aliens, but they weren't communicating with me. They weren't nice to me. And so, it's like I felt like I was in in the proverbial school where you put the dunce hat at and you sit in the corner. Right. And so if I wouldn't cooperate, they just ignored me and walked out.
All right. So basically, Jim, they made you learn their whole alphabet. Did you get to the point where you had their whole alphabet down? And if so, what did that do? Did that precipitate communication with them? In other words, once you had their whole alphabet down, if you did, what did you do with it?
Yeah, well, it went from all the way from A to no Z's or no Q's, and then it went into a number system from 1 to 6. So they had a 6-based number system, and so that again, I didn't know what the purpose of it was. It didn't make sense to me. And so now this is going on, and now these abductions going on. I'm losing weight. I'm not coping well, and it was just a bad scene in those early months, and then that led to several years. But
if I might ask, Jim, how at this point? I mean, you're being abducted again and again and again and again. How did your wife handle it? Did you stop talking about it, or did you keep telling her, or what?
Well, that's when I finally got up one day, and I looked at myself in the mirror because nobody believed me at that time, and it's a whole different world today. But anyway, no one believed me, and couldn't blame them, really. And so I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, man, you look terrible. You're losing weight. You're not sleeping. These things aren't going to stop. So I decided I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, and if I don't talk about it, nobody thinks it's weird. And I kept my mouth shut, and I kept this stuff to myself right on for 6 years, going through this alphabet thing. They did emotional experiments while I was there. They did medical experiments in the sense where they didn't hurt me medically. They did, intellectual experiments, and then, learning the alphabet at the same time. And yet, I'd find myself in different places over there, but yet still paralyzed, and they wouldn't answer why me. And it's good to take note of the fact that this alphabet is something, and I hated them, I loathed them, and I think it's why so much of it was committed to memory. And I think they got to see me different from as other abductees, because other abductees, they take the memory away and bring them back.
All right. Well, I have a question. It may or may not make sense, but here it comes. Why were they teaching you their alphabet if they had the ability to communicate with you directly mentally?
Okay, well, here it goes. Once the alphabet and the number system was down, I call it pulled. When I say abducted, I use the terminology pulled, meaning from point A to point B. So when I got pulled one particular evening, and there I was sitting on a bench, and there I was with the alphabet, and out of nowhere, because I've never done this before, came some normal text lettering with 50 pages, like on that wall screen, one page at a time, approximately 30, about right close to 50 pages. And it was about a story that in regular block lettering that everybody can read, when you get anything in that newspaper print. And it was a story about a friend of mine named Jerry. And Jerry, they went page after page. They went through his entire life, from a child to where he went to school, who he dated, who he married. And I'm reading this thing right up on through the present, and it looked like it was even gone a little bit into the future. Now, after I read these pages, because it was something I can read, I yelled and screamed, "What are you doing?" And, of course, I made up every cuss word you can think of for them, and new ones that probably no one ever heard at that time. And why are you doing this? And then the most astounding thing took place that started a transformation. And it goes back to knowing you're learning something, as you mentioned earlier. The next page that came up, instead of being in our text, it came in, or our text, it came in their symbols, but it was about a half a page, not even a half a page. And every symbol that I read, I knew the symbols from that. I could read the whole story and understand the whole story in a matter of just a couple of minutes, or less than that, maybe, less than a minute. Here's the whole story. So they took 50 pages of text, compressed it into these symbols, and now you can get the whole story in detail, in graphic detail, in less than a minute.
All right, I have another question.
I went, oh.
All right, yep, okay, but I've got another question. I don't get it. If they were giving you their alphabet and number sequences, okay, but how were you able to read their symbols and have, in other words, our alphabet, for example, is used to make up words. And so when you learn the alphabet, you can put sounds together, but that doesn't add up to understanding necessarily. So as you read their symbols, how did you have an understanding of what you were reading?
It just worked that way with the brain. And with them being there, it worked that way with the brain. You're reviewing everything, and it's pieced together in a way from our alphabet to their symbolism, and the symbols equated to our alphabet. But it's almost like shorthand, but for some reason the brain picks it up right away, and that's just something they're able to do. Now, it gets even better than that. Just to show you, the wall screw went blank, and one of them held up something the size of a 50-cent coin and flashed it in front of my face.
Right.
Just for a second. It had something scribbled on it, symbols scribbled, and then flashed it in front of my face, and I got the whole story in less than a second. And so the best way for me to describe, so this is how their minds work, and it was a way to relate to me faster ways to communicate. So it bypasses a lot of the things that we have to do. We're all physical. The eyes have to see it. It has to go in through the brain, into the cortex, however that works. I'm not a medical student, but it goes into your brain and translates into language, and the brain seeing the language and translates it into something you can understand. But it bypasses all that stuff, and the symbols go right to the brain with a story. So it's really advanced, and it's a way of getting a lot of information in a quick time. So the best way I can describe that is like if you can name any movie, think of any movie you want to. Can you come up with the name of any movie? It doesn't matter what it is.
World War Z.
Okay, World War Z. Everything about that movie, when we hear about a movie that we've seen before, we know it. We know the emotions behind the movie. We know the storyline. We know who the actors are. We knew what everything was going through. So that entire movie, since you've seen it, is in there in your mind, right? The feeling of it, everything.
Yes.
Okay. Now they can flash a symbol, and you can get a 2-hour movie, but it wouldn't be a movie. They can take a 2-hour event and put it in front of you quickly, and you'll have the whole movie if it were a movie, which they don't do movies, but any kind of an event in your mind. So that was a very positive thing. So that was something that I noticed for us down the road, and that's something that took, years of me resisting them in the beginning and trying to run away from them to even learn anything. So I couldn't have been a worse pupil because I didn't want anything to do with them. In fact, I was hell-bent on, I actually wanted to kill one if I had the opportunity to, which I did, and and then you'll see.
Trust me, I understand the feeling. It is such a violation of any human being to be abducted like that, that feelings of wanting to kill, oh, yes, I understand that very well indeed, Jim.
Well, and that was it. So even though that alphabet was something that was amazing to me, it wasn't enough at that time for me to not like them. I still didn't like them. But one thing started leading to another. But I still had that in me to want to take them down. So now here's how wild it got in those years, that they would come into the house, literally, using their technology and their science. And before they would pull me or abduct me, they would actually come into the house and make themselves, in a sense, at home. And I'm not being silly. I mean, they would look at things in the house, like what humans are using or whatever. And that's how crazy this is. It's like a movie. You're sitting there, I'm sitting in my armchair, and here's this thing walking around looking at stuff. So with that in mind, before I would be escorted, because now I'm completely conscious, but yet I'm under their control. When they abduct me, I'm partially paralyzed. I got a little better to take me from point A to point B, which is on board, but not always the same way. Sometimes I would black out and then I would find myself there. But more or less what I'm saying, there were times that they would come to the house, inside the house. And so I figured now this is my chance, because I finally got up the guts to say, I'm gonna kill an alien. And so then I can tell you how I decided to do it. And maybe you would do the same thing. Which was kind of wild. So the thing I did was, knowing that they're going to come into the house from time to time, I wanted to be ready for them. So I went to the gun store and bought a 357 Magnum.
Oh.
And yeah, and so now I buy this pistol, and then I got to muster up the courage to shoot them. So I went to the bottle shop and I bought myself I think it was vodka or something, and so that I brought it back home, and I set the bottle to the left on the end table and to the right on the end table. It was the pistol, and I sat in the armchair, and I said, when one comes in, I'm going to shoot him. And I would take, a little gulp of the vodka just to settle my nerves and have the courage.
How much courage did you get?
Well, enough just to take, burn the stomach there a little bit. Every few minutes for a while. But, but it did work, because I didn't have any kind of because I don't want to kill anything, you want to kill them, but, the actual thought of doing something is one thing, and actually the actual physical, bringing yourself to something like that is another, which I'm about to go over. Because when they came in, now here I am on the chair, and they got me at the right time, and I took my few sips of the alcohol, and I did have the pistol ready, and one of them was walking into the living room, and then he walked right in front of me, and had no fear or didn't show anything, because here's this gun sitting there, didn't care, and then he turns his back on me, and he's looking like he's looking at the television set. Now his back and his head is turned to me. And so I pick up the pistol, and I take it, and I point it right directly to the back of his head. It was only a couple of feet away. And then I got my finger on the trigger, and I yelled something at him, which was, I said, you are so damn stupid. You come thousands of miles with all this high technology, and you don't even know how to turn on a television set, and I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And I put my finger on, I had my finger on the trigger, and I couldn't pull it. I just couldn't bring myself to pulling it after all those years of them not being nice to me and everything.
Oh, no, wait a minute. You say you couldn't pull the trigger. Do you mean you emotionally couldn't pull it, or you were paralyzed and couldn't pull it?
Emotionally. Because I'm at home, I can move around, because it got silly when I was at home, being paralyzed on board in a sense, because they knew nobody believed me, and I wasn't talking to anybody, and it's just something that I had to deal with. And I didn't kill him, but the telepathic voice says, he said to me telepathically, he said, we know, the words were exactly, we know you're not a killer, and you're not. We know you're not a killer, and you're not. And quite frankly, I wept, and then I got pulled. But this is something that started changing things, because now I understand the reason for this alphabet. Now I realize I can't kill him, and what I didn't know was going to happen here is now we got a bond or a trust is building. It took them 6 years to get to this point to trust me, to start to trust me, and even in that way. And so,
Okay, listen, buddy, I hear you. They would have, you said they had no fear. And if, in fact, they were able to read your mind, then they did, in fact, know that you were not a killer, that you could not bring yourself to kill, even though you'd prepped to do it and had everything you needed, including a little liquid courage, that you weren't going to kill anybody at all. So, of course, they had no fear. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so then that's what. Now I still don't know really it's leading to something. In fact, I'm really I'm just down. It was depressed me because I was going to do it and I couldn't do it. Where's this? Why are they here? Well, why me, and all of this. And now I started getting answers. So answers now started occurring. So the next time I got pulled. They would never answer any of my questions. No matter what, I would never get an answer to any question. And I later learned that they just wouldn't know anyway. And I was so frustrated on one abduction, that abduction after it, I was said, why me? Why me? Why me?
Right.
What's making me different from anybody else? And I got a holographic, something that looked like a hologram came up basically in thin air on board, when I was sitting in front of in front of the wall screen, because here I am I can move my head up and down state still. I was still paralyzed. And I saw a scene of, it was a World War II scene. And in that World War II scene, I could see a face that looked like mine. It was a soldier, and anyway, it looked like actually what it was it was two officers. It looked like a German officer and an Italian officer. So my bloodline is Italian, but I've been third generation, second generation. I'm American. And nonetheless, they were doing something together, but the face on that soldier or that officer kind of looked like a family member. And anyway, it kind of makes sense to me to look at that because my father told me, he died in his right at 90, but he told me back, before World War II that. Because he was working and living in Italy and back in the United States at the time, he said that, before, the war, and this war was coming, that they had no choice, that some of them had to fight for the Axis power. Right. And then we had the rest of my family fighting here for us. So, that's how that went. I know you know what I'm talking about. Make a long story short.
I do. Were you actually looking at one of your relatives?
Yes. That's what I was looking at. Here's the message, because the next one that comes up is a turn of the century where there's, the late 1800s, early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution in the United States. There's a ribbon cutting ceremony, and then I got another that looks like a relative. And what they were saying is that we because I was saying, why me? They track family lines. They genetically track family lines for thousands of years, and these things kept coming out one at a time. It went back to the Roman period, and it went back, even BC. I mean, well before that. So one after the other, and that was their answer. So I got an answer to why me, which, was a remarkable thing because now...
Okay, so the answer was, if I've got it straight, Jim, that it was you because you are simply the current one in the long line that they've been following in your lineage, yes?
That's exactly it.
Okay, hold on where you are. We're going to do a break here, a quick break, and we'll be right back. Jim Sparks.
From the kingdom of, this is Dark Matter with Art Bell, exclusively on Sirius XM Radio. And now, here's Art.
I love this song. I absolutely love this song. You can actually listen to the words.
What a wonderful...
Ah, yeah. Me too. All right. Yeah, baby. We've got a rough phone connection with Jim Sparks, really rough, and it's begun to sort of get a little digital in nature. He's on a landline phone, so I'm not sure what we're facing here, but we'll attempt a reconnect in the next break, see if we can improve things. Getting a little rough, Jim. You're starting to break up every now and then, but please let us continue and see how we do.
Okay. And anyway, as it went on, that there was the thing where I just left off with you, and they actually were starting to answer questions, and that's the lineage and family. So I was feeling better about myself there, and I had just a better attitude about them. But then the next time I got abducted, it even got better. Or I got pulled, it even got better than that, because now I am on board, and now for the first time ever, I'm standing up. I'm not paralyzed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing where there's this, the table, there's this wall, the table that I used to see, the bench, I could see the bench. I could see the table screen. I had complete movement of my body. I was in this room. No one was there. And I said to myself, I can't believe it. I can touch myself. I can move around. And, they have me completely mobile. What do I do? And so I took a chance, and I started to walk around. So it's the first time I ever walked around on board. And no one was in the room, and I walked down this corridor, and it was small, I guess, for their size. And as I walked down a corridor, it was dimly lit and then lit, light again radiating from everywhere, so there's not a light bulb per se. And there was an opening to my right, and when I went to the right, I looked into the room, and I got frightened to death. Basically because there were they looked like beings. I didn't know what they were. They were laying on their back. They were staring into the ceiling, and with their eyes open, and they weren't moving, and they were laying on these gurneys, and there were dozens of them like that. And so I panicked, and I started yelling. I started screaming, "They're dead! They're dead!" And I just couldn't relate to that in any way, shape, or form. And so I was in a complete panic mode. And one of them came in from behind. I could sense his presence, and he blacked me out. So what this is leading to was the fact that they were actually showing me some of the things they do. some of their handiwork, which leads to a whole other area, as I later learned. You may be aware, Art, back in the mid-'90s, early to mid-'90s, there was a campaign where you heard about making hybrid humans and all this kind of stuff was going on, where they were.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I later learned what the purpose of that was, and it's going to, as gruesome as this is going to sound, is that they do take the material from men and women to work on things and to create, an insurance policy, so to speak. And these are some of the things that are going to be hard, to digest, but, they see that we as humans are caught in this vicious cycle where we start off basically as a primeval era, where basically we're tribal people and villages and such, and then as hundreds or thousands of years go by, we civilize, and then we create, we have our technology, and then we're at the brink of, self-destruction. And this is something they seem to know about our nature. So there was a campaign in those years to put together, in case we did self-destruct.
Well, apparently they've been watching our Congress here in the U.S.
Well, they created, they worked on creating a better human being. So in case we did self-destruct, it would be one that's more intelligent, more environmentally concerned. And
well, let's select one of them.
Ourselves to pieces, But, with that being said, I was seeing part of that process, but, it made me scared to death. And they had to black me out but it was the beginning stages of letting me walk around. And, then I'm going to go into a period where I just kind of failed miserably for me to adapt to what they are. And I came out of it in another abduction experience where I got pulled again. And when I got pulled this time, it was, again, I was able to move around. I was on a gurney. They were doing a procedure with a test, and I was laying there. And then they asked me to get up off the gurney and walk over to another one. Now I had the freedom to walk to that. There was a semen extraction where usually what I'm seeing during those times, and this is the stuff that was just went along with this, was periodically that's what they would do. And the way they would do it was to create images of something pleasant. And meaning that, this story I like to tell because it was a breaking story in a sense where this was happening, where I was pulled. I was laying on a gurney, and to my left were two very attractive women, but they weren't real, but they were made to look real. And one of them was talking very nice to me, and the other one was touching my hair, at least in my mind they were, and saying, "Why isn't he handsome?" And, as soon as they said that, I'm thinking, I don't know these women, and I shake my head around, and everything they blanked out, and what I can see in front of me was exactly what they were doing, which was they had an instrument on my groin, and there was one in the middle holding it in place, and then there was two on the right and the left, and I panicked, and I kicked him, the one in the middle. And I actually physically kicked him, and he went into the back of the wall. So he went backwards and hit a wall back there. He lunged up. He came up started coming at me, and I'm laying on the gurney. I'm scared to death. What is he going to do? And he put his face right within an inch of my face and stopped right there. And those big eyes were looking in my eyes, and he had 100 thoughts. He raced into my mind in just a matter of a second, meaning that if I slowed him down, why did you kick me? You shouldn't have kicked me. You know it's dangerous to kick me. You can get hurt. I can get hurt. This and this and that. And then I blacked out. So with that being said, I found myself back home, and I wasn't very happy with things. I'm thinking, what's going to happen next? They gave me some freedom to go around on board. They're showing me some of the things we're conducting, and I panic. They gave me some freedom to, as far as what they're doing and some of the agenda they were up to at the time. and I kicked one of them, and I didn't mean to. And so for several months afterwards, I didn't get abducted again. That was the end of it. And I thought to myself, well, that's it. You know.
All right. During the time that you were being abducted, was this occurring? Michelle, who can send me a message on my computer through something called the wormhole at my website, artbell.com, plug, asks if you were being abducted every night. Was this occurring nightly or every other night or once a week or how often?
In the first 18 months, it could happen 2 or 3 times a week for several months in a row. There might be a couple of weeks that it wouldn't happen, a week or two, and it was 2 or 3 times a week, and it was mostly at night, definitely, in the first 18 months.
Okay. All right. So now you kicked one, and they don't want anything to do with you for a while, huh?
That's what I'm figuring, and it gave me a lot of time to think about it. That I failed miserably in a sense, because now after 6 years of being paralyzed, I'm able to move around and I made trouble. And so several months go by, and then something spectacular happened, which again these things changed the sequence of events that were just phenomenal. And so after several months, I got pulled again. And I was standing in this room, and where I always was, again, I was not paralyzed. I was by myself at first, and my right hand was leaning up against the table. That's how I found myself after I got pulled and came to. I was completely mobile, standing there and thinking, all right, I'm back. Okay, what are they going to do now? I had no clue. And 2 of them came walking through a corridor, and one of them had a black box in his hand. And I was a little bit frightened, looking at the black box, not knowing what it was. It was about the size of a shoebox, only it was perfectly square. It was absorbent black. And they walked forward. As they walked towards me, he put it on the table, which was that table screen that I described earlier, and he pushed it towards me. And I could see those weird bony fingers pushing it towards me on the table. And then I said, "What's this? What are you giving me? What do you want me to do with it? What is that?" And they said, "Do with it as you will." Those are the exact words. And they turned around, and they headed down to the end of the room and into the corridor. So now here I am by myself again in this room, and here's this black box sitting on this table. And I'm afraid of it. I don't know what it is. I have some fear running through me, so I walk around it, and I'm looking at it, and I get close, and I take my finger. I'm afraid to touch it, and I touch it with my finger, and it didn't hurt me. And so I started moving it around on the table, and I decided to pick it up. Let me pick it up. It's not going to hurt me. And now I've got this box in my hand, and, I don't know what it is. And then a telepathic voice says, it's the one that said, do with it as you will again. Mm-hmm. And so now I've got the box in my hand, and I decide, okay, well, let me see if I can open it. So I start pulling from one side, turned it around, pulled it from another side, and then I gripped it really hard, and I was pulling with all my strength. It wouldn't open. And then I took it and I put it on the floor, and I wedged it between my legs, and then I was trying to open it that way. And then I took it. I took it with my right hand. I lifted it over my head because I was about to smash it on the table to try to get it open, as the clot as I was going to get into it, because I couldn't open it. And just before I started to slam it into the table, the telepathic voice said, "He didn't try to open it gently." No. Yeah, all right, And so I put it in front of me, and I put my hand on top of the box, and I gently, a little bit of pressure, and it opened up, and this horrific stench in there, the worst smelling stuff that you can imagine. And inside was this black tarry substance with something looking like test tubes in it that I couldn't make any sense out of it. And then the telepathic voice says, "It's a gift. It's a gift for you." And then I screamed out, "What the hell kind of gift is this? What is this nasty thing? It's a gift." Yeah, yes, it's a gift. We extracted it from your lungs.
Well, at the time,
yes. At the time, I was a heavy cigarette smoker.
So this was all the residual tar, nicotine-laced mess that had been in your lungs was now in this box in your hand. Wonderful.
Yes. And so now, again, as you can see, they're changing. I'm changing. I just went, oh, okay, that's fantastic. I didn't know if I wanted to believe it or not, but quite frankly, at 10, 15 years, I mean, right after that, I felt better. I could breathe better. There was no doubt about it. That's something that they did. So I was convinced that they did it, and that was real.
Right.
And so, all of these things were leading to something that was fantastic now. And this is when I got involved in my mass abduction. And not knowing it was going to be a mass abduction. And one particular evening, I got pulled. And I found myself in a field. And it was a clearing in the field, and meaning it was about the size of a football field. And so there were trees all the way around, but the trees seemed to have been cleared. And I was standing up, and I didn't know what was going to take place next. And below me was people scattered all over the ground. Grouped up, I'd say there's about 15 people.
Wow.
And they were paralyzed. Some of them could move slightly. They were sprawled all over the ground. They were in their night clothes, nightgowns. Some were partially nude, as if, they got abducted and dumped in this field in the middle of the night from, after going to bed. And then there was a gray standing a few feet next to me to my right. And then to my left was another, about another 10 feet away was another group of people sprawled all over the ground, and another gray. And then there was three piles, about 12 or 15 of us. And now I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm here. And
no, but these were other human beings. So did you run to any of them to check them to see if they were alive, moving, scared to death, what their situation was, or what?
Yeah, exactly. There was some of them were moaning. There was this one particular girl, woman. She had blonde hair. She was in the fetal position, and she was rocking back and forth, so she was able to do that, and she was crying. She was scared. And then this telepathic voice from the alien said, "Calm her." And the first thing that came to my mind was, what is it? I got a job? What, are you giving me a job here? I
Sounds like it, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote this again. It's a lot of these things are much more detailed. I guess it's a plug for the keepers of the book, but they can go on to jim-sparks.com, and I put a lot more detail in between, from here to where we are. And I committed all of this to memory, and I did it for that reason. But anyway,
all right, Jim, hold on. Well, we're going to take a break, and during the break, we're going to try a reconnection to you and see if we can get rid of some of this digital mess that we've got. So that's what we're going to do right now. He's all the way down in Australia. It makes it a little difficult when the audio is breaking up, but I'm sort of hanging in there. This is one whale of the story. You're listening to Dark Matter. In the nighttime, raging forward. Once again, Jim Sparks from Australia. Jim?
Yes.
I guess I would like to ask you, because I haven't, what made you move all the way to Australia?
Well, it's business. I came here. I travel back and forth for business, so I'm still based in the United States. American citizen, but I work in Australia quite a bit. So I spend several months here, and then I'm back home for a while, and then I'm here. So that's basically business.
All right, so I just happened to catch you at a moment that you were down under.
That's it.
All right. You were in a ship, Jim, obviously, all these incidences of abduction. You were in an alien ship. So I have a few questions for you. Number one, if you're able to describe the ship in any detail. Number two, was there a window? Were you ever able to look out? And if so, did you ever see anything you recognized?
Well, actually, on board, there were no windows, and I could not look out.
Okay. All right. What you described the screen wall. Are there any other parts of the ship you got to that you can describe?
Well, from the actually there is because on the mass abduction, the way it was laid out it was amazing actually, and that's what I was going into now. And if I may, I can continue where I left off, and that'll describe pretty much what was the interior of a craft.
All right. Well, you said that it was almost like in a field or something. Is that kind of like something they produced? In other words, this field, this place where these abductees were laying all over the ground. Was it something like in Star Trek that they produced for you?
Well, actually, it was a place, and it was a real place, and it was definitely real. They had cleared the woods for this particular experience. It was an overcast night, and I even got a basic idea, I believe, where it was, which was somewhere just south of Orlando, Florida, and northeast of Tampa. And the reason I surmised that, because it was a completely overcast evening when I was there. And the next day when that experience was over, at the time I was a big fan of the Weather Channel, back there at that time anyway. And so I went onto the Weather Channel to see if I can figure out, where it was overcast in the United States, because I could tell by the trees. They were pine trees, so I knew I was in the southern United States. And I knew I wasn't North Florida and the Panhandle. The pine trees turn into a different species, and then and southern Florida and central Florida, they're distinctly different. And these are the trees that I could relate to in that part of Florida, so that was a clue. And also, when I looked at the Weather Channel, it happened to be the time of year where we had a big cold front coming through, that rocketed the United States. And it pushed the clouds all the way up into just south of Orlando. And then, basically from the central United States all the way up, was clear. And then that was the area that was overcast and that kind of weather. So I figured it to be in that proximity over there.
Okay, gotcha.
And so going into the interior, which is about to take place, and that girl, and these were things that were taking place that were beyond my comprehension, and yet I was starting to get an understanding of things, and I was starting to feel a little better about what was going on, because I didn't realize that actually they have an agenda. The agenda is it's a positive one for us, and if we follow it, there's a way for the human species to evolve. And at the time I was clueless. It just took all these years, to bring us up to these things. And, it took time for me to get comfortable with these people or these beings. So, anyway, there were things that, led up to that moment, and on the beach, and anyway, led up to that place. And there was something that, happened that brought me there. And these are a sequence of events. And when when the girl was sitting there, and she was in a panic stage, and they said to me, calm her. Then, as I was saying earlier, I felt, a freedom to do something about it. But there were things that led up to this point, things that led up to the point to give me the freedom that I wanted. So with that in mind, they said, calm her. So I went up to this girl, and I put my hand on her shoulder, and I said, you don't have nothing to be afraid about. You're going to be okay. Nothing's going to hurt you. They're going to take you on board. They're going to teach you this alphabet. And then the telepathic voice from the alien says, you're telling her too much. Just calm her. And so then there was a guy, there was one man that was standing up, and he was standing up next to me, and he was the only one that was standing there. And this is a person that all these abductions that I later on saw when I got back home, because of all the people, I did have abductions where I could see people on other people instead of being trapped into that room, and that's where this is moving to. But that one particular person I did get to see back home. And it was interesting how that turned out, and I can talk a little bit about him as I go into this part of it. And so I calmed her, and this guy that was standing up, which I didn't mention earlier, he was the only one who was standing, and he was dazed. He was saying, I was driving in my car, I was driving in my car, I was driving in my car. So he had got abducted, and he was riding along in his vehicle. So you can imagine how he was feeling, yeah. And so
he was riding, Jim, or he was driving?
He was driving. According to him, I was driving my car, and here he is there. And so the telepathic voice said, calm him. And so I went up to him and said, look, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I said, don't worry about it. You're going to, I just was saying soothing words to this person. And then and here he is there. And so the telepathic voice said, calm him. And so I went up to him and said, look, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I said, don't worry about it. You're going to, I just was saying soothing words to this person. And then to the left.
Probably should have asked him if he had good insurance.
Yeah, I can imagine. Or maybe they had him pulled over, but that's his last memory. And and here he is there. Then the people who were on the ground started moaning, the ships. And I looked over to my left, and I could see 3 balls of light in the horizon. And I guess the best way I can describe them was the fact that it was an overcast night at the time, was when car dealers or any kind of thing was advertising, and they use those million candle light searchlights, to
right. Sure.
And and it kind of looked like that. There was 3 balls of lights, and one of them just hauled over from the horizon right on top of my group of people, and to the left, it was still behind the clouds. It was overcast. The other one, they went right in succession to the next group of people, and then another one came to the third group of people, and they were hovering above each 3 groups. And I was the one in the first group, so I was looking up at the sky, and I saw the ball of light, and it started to descend. And as it broke through the clouds, I saw one of the. It was just the most spectacular sight that I ever saw in my life. And my heart was racing. I had joy inside me. I was elated by this thing, because of everything that I had been going through and all this negative stuff that was progressing. I'm now seeing the exterior of a craft. And as it started lowering, I'm looking up at it, and it was spherical shaped. It had like a dome underneath the bottom. There were windows all around the dome, and then there was a dome on top of it. And as it kept coming down, I could see through the windows grays going back and forth as if they were looking down out through a window, as if they're checking it out down there. And I could see what I thought were people, humans. At the time, I know that they are people behind these windows, and they would look down too. And then to my left, the other craft started descending over that group of people, and then the next group further to my left, it started descending down in perfect sequence. And I just stepped out in front of those people, and I kept walking forward towards it with my hands up in the air because this light came out of it, and it was a bright light that hit the ground, a beam of light, a very white beam of light. It was a bright white with a hue of blue. And I was looking up, and I could still see the craft. It was bright enough, and I was yelling out, "It's beautiful! It's beautiful! It's beautiful!" And then to my left, and a beam of light came over that group of people, and to the next one down, it came over that group of people. And I started yelling out, "They're beautiful! They're beautiful!" And bam, I blacked out.
Huh. Well, maybe they didn't like your voice.
Well, I guess when I came to, because when I came to, I was standing on my feet, and I was in this huge corridor, and that group of people that were all sprawled over the ground were standing up, and I was in front of the group, and they were standing there. They kind of looked like zombies, basically, but they weren't paralyzed. They were just standing there. They weren't saying anything. And here it is, a corridor, and it's craft, inside this craft. And the next thing the telepathic voice said, "Lead them." And so in my mind, I knew it meant that to walk forward. And as I took a step, they took a step. Now, this guy that I was talking about, he was next to me, the one I later saw again in real life down here, I should say. And anyway, and lead them. And so as I walked forward, they walked forward. I kind of played around a little bit and stopped, and they stopped. And then this corridor opened up into this room inside this ship about the size of a basketball court.
Right.
And it was just huge. And all I could see was rows. What I could see at that point was rows and rows and rows and rows of something that looked like monitors, like a bench, a workbench, and a monitor in front of it, some monitor that we didn't use. And the next, and then at the end of the back wall, there was all this activity going on. I could see grays going back and forth. I can see human beings and normal everyday clothes working with them. And this whole thing was just like riveting. I didn't understand what this was going to happen or what was going to go on next, as you can well imagine. But this was a mass abduction, and this was the beginning of a mass abduction. And at this point, I was so clueless as to what are they going to do with us. I had no idea. And so the next instructions to me were feed them. And so I took the person that was right next to me, and I walked forward and walked next to him, and he followed me. And I walked about to the middle of one of those lines of monitors on an aisle. And I stopped, and I was looking around to want to see more. And a telepathic voice goes, "No, like, don't do that." And, because I was supposed to see them to the end, and I didn't want to. I still kept looking. I kept looking. I saw people. I saw grays. And then the voice said, "No," real loud in my head, and then said, "No," again, and then I blacked out. So
I want to ask a quick question, Jim, if I might. Bill in Defiance, Ohio is asking, and I'm asking too. At this point, you're cooperating with these aliens. And I wonder if you're doing it because you have resolved in your mind that what's happening is a good thing and you should be doing it, or whether you have essentially joined others who have been affected by the Stockholm Syndrome, where you just sort of eventually melt into their culture.
Well, I would have to argue the Stockholm Syndrome, because what it turns out to be with that is your mind is always free. You have a choice. You can do what you want. I've never felt led to do anywhere but that. And what I learned over the years, and it took years to learn it, is that you just can't invite them to your home or they can't just land on the White House lawn and say, we're here. And you can't necessarily invite them to your home and have a cup of coffee and say, tell us what you're all about, because they just don't relate that way. And that's what's hard to swallow. And this is something that took years. And, you know, as I was saying in the beginning, what makes it difficult for us is just because the way they are. They're just not human beings. They're extremely intelligent. They're extremely advanced. They don't associate. They don't socialize the same way. They're just not that. I wish I could say they socialize like us. They have no emotions, but I later learned that they have a long view of emotions, and you would think they didn't have any. And as time went on, I learned that they do have feelings, but they don't express it necessarily like we do. And so it's just very difficult to be with them. So these things are necessary, for me to get there. So, no, I never felt like now my captives, these are my captives, and it's the syndrome going on. So I was elated by what was going on there. I was a little stubborn, I guess a little bit out of order, because, I was asked to do something and participate instead of being this, and this is what this led to, which was, pretty fantastic. Because I did black out, because when I blacked out, I came to, and then I realized when I got conscious again that I was sitting in front of one of these monitors, and I looked around, and there were literally over 1,000 people seated in this room. This is a mass abduction. And we were all seated in front of these monitors.
Well, Jim, it almost sounds like when you are of assistance to them willingly and you do help them, they let you go. When you either kick them or object in some way to what they're doing or don't follow directions, you black out.
So, yeah, for whatever reasons that they have me black out that way. But in this case, when I was looking around, I could see thousands of people. I mean, to me, there was anywhere between 1,100, 1,200 people in this room, and what was going to happen next, I wasn't sure. And all of a sudden, all these monitors lit up at the same time. And it looked like a demonstration of when you're selling televisions, television sets at night, in front of a glass plate window for the store. Bam, they all went on at the same time.
Right.
And so I'm looking at mine, and the first image, now there's an image that comes onto the screen. You're somehow, your emotions are charged up, as you might imagine, but you're not afraid. And you're sitting in front of this monitor, and it lights up, and it's the first thing I see. And everybody's seeing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And again, it's a mass abduction scenario. And it's a perfect picture view of the ocean, the earth, in perfect, pristine condition. From a time period before we messed up the oceans, I would take it. The water was just beautiful blue and a turquoise. The sky was crystal clear, and it just absolutely took your breath away. And that's what you hear people, they're going, oh, man, that's beautiful, that's beautiful.
Right.
And you can imagine that kind of reaction with 1,000 people or more in one room like that, emotionally overwhelmed. So how they charged us up to feel it more, and which we did. And then then you heard a hum, and it fades away. And then there's another view comes up on the screen, and it's the beautiful wood scene with a lake. And again, the air is clear, the trees are healthy, and then you hear a hum, and then another scene comes up, and then this scene is a mountain scene with snow on the top, beautiful snow, and just one beautiful scene after the other. And there was that humming sound, and then it would come on, and then it would go away. And then they slowly started turning ugly. And the beautiful, the next scene that comes up, which was the beautiful ocean, the pristine ocean, now it's gray. There's bloated fish floating on the top of it. The sky's looking rank and polluted, and now you have the opposite feeling. You're going, oh, my God, this is awful. You're breathing like that. This is awful. This is awful. Then you see the mountain scene, and acid rain is eating the trees, and you're just getting pulled into these scenes. And then words come across the screen, start to come across the screen, and they just say, as each scene it gets uglier, you're killing your planet. Your planet is dying. You're killing your planet. Your planet is dying. You're killing your planet. Your planet is dying.
Wow.
Yeah. Message. So here's a message. And blacked out again. And so people were actually, as you can tell, received something from all of that.
All right, I have a question. I want to interject here. Obviously, you said there were, your guess was around 1,000 people. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay.
That's my guess. That's my best guess.
All right. Now, you have told this story a number of times. My question would be, of those 1,000 people, you would think that 1 or 2 or 10 would come forward and say, you know what? I was there. I was in that craft. I was in that group. I saw those pictures. In other words, what has become of these people?
This is what I know them to do by, of all the years of being pulled and seeing different things go on, is they take the memory away and just leave the message that they impart in your mind.
Oh.
And I surmise that to mean that because, we're all alike when it comes to something like that. We're going to ask a lot of questions. Where are you from? Why are you here? What are you doing? Why is this? Why is that? And why are you this? And why are you that? And why are you this? And so my best guess, because they're not hurting any of these people, is that they're giving them a message.
Okay, so you think that their memories were wiped out, and all they were left with was a sense of environmentalism, and they were creating mass environmentalists.
Well, I think that had a lot to do with it. The abduction phenomena that's been going on now for over, 20 years or more, 30 years, maybe even longer than that. Most of these memories have to be pulled out. People have partial memories, a little better than partial memories. Hypnotic regression brings out some memories in people. And so, I think don't look at the messenger, just listen to the message. And I think that's basically what that's saying.
All right. Hold on, Jim. Hold on. We're going to do this break. It's very difficult doing this with such a great delay between here and Australia. And, yes, thanks for the suggestion. We already talked about Skype. His internet is not so good, so we decided not to try it. But keep trying with Jim. We will. Anybody out there remember any of this? Once again, we're going back to Jim Sparks, and you know what? It kind of makes sense to me. In other words, as these folks were subjected to what our planet looked like in pristine condition, and then what we are turning it into, I guess it would turn anybody into an environmentalist. And then if you erase the memories of the abduction, what they would be left with would be, I don't know, good for the planet, right? And if we really are headed on that kind of a course, and we are destroying our planet, I'm not immune to that concept. We may well be destroying our planet. Then doing what they're doing would make sense, and they wouldn't remember. Okay, Jim, you're back on the air again.
Yep. So, with that being said, I come to believe that there are many, many, many mass abductions, and it could be considered maybe tens of thousands. Some people estimate millions, some people estimate more. And, in fact, right after that happened, there was sort of an anecdote that's kind of funny. A funny scene happened, which was after we all got the message, we black out. And when I came to in a room that was reminded me of a locker room of sorts. because it was just my group of people, or the group of people that I had led into the through the corridor for this message, and they were again they could move around, but they were traumatized. And they were frightened, they were scared, and it was like, sort of like what you were just saying. It makes sense that they might take that away so they can get the message, but they were still, they were disoriented. They didn't know where they were. And again, I was asked, to calm a few of them, and, which I did. But the antidote is there was a telepathic sort of a PA message that everybody got at the same time, which was you can't leave, no one can leave until you find your exact clothes. And these people went from whoa to all of a sudden they jumped up on their feet and their clothes were flying all over the place. And you think they have them folded nice and neat for them. And, then I found myself back home. And, so there were a lot of things that, again, this is something that's been going on up, to now. That, led me to have feel better about what they are and what they do, even though they're strange. They're just strange to us. And so there was a few more events that they opened up to me that just made me a happier person with them. And then I realized that I'm one of the few people that can actually keep the memory. And I'm finding out they're not, doing horrible things. They're teaching us something. I'm not sure what the abducted thing was, but it was pretty cool to, get 2 hours worth or an hour's worth or a half hour's worth of information in less than a second and know the whole thing.
Yes.
So maybe that's something for us to look forward to. And I always complained. I said, how come you people just can't, and there was a sequence of events that were pretty neat to bring me where I am today and feel better about it and talk about it. But, I used to complain, on board, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just land somewhere and say hi, have a little social, they had no social, be a little social with it.
Sure.
And so there's, a couple of things that took place that, were granted to me. And one of which was, which led up to, well, anyway, it's going to lead up to some other stuff. One of which was I was, my folks at the time lived in Miami, and I was staying over in the west coast of Florida, Fort Myers Beach to be exact at that time. And I had went over to visit my parents, and I went into my bedroom as a boy, before I left home, to take a nap. And, I went into the bedroom, and as soon as I laid my head on the bed, I was actually I was on my side, sort of almost on my belly kind of thing, to take a nap. As soon as I hit the bed, it was this super loud sound, like a lightning strike, that was so incredibly loud in my head, it was just ear-splitting. And then I found myself elevated above my bed, and I was maybe 3-4 feet in the air, and my arms were waving, didn't know what was going on, and I turned and I looked at the doorway, and 3 of them were standing at the doorway. And the telepathic message said, "We're here." And blam, they dropped me back onto the bed and disappeared. They didn't even abduct me, all right? So there's a cynical sense of humor starting to develop. We're here.
Cynical? My God. Somebody did that to me while I was in bed asleep, and I woke up flailing in the air. I'd get somebody, I guarantee you. I'd get them.
Yeah, they didn't even let me go to sleep. I mean, that was the thing. How you're ready to just lay down. I mean, I was still awake, and that was it, so they let me see the whole thing and completely conscious of all its glory. And so I learned over the years that they come in sequences. It's like cruises, and they come to do things. They're definitely concerned about the environment. There's no doubt about it. They're actually collecting seeds of every form that you can fathom, life forms in its seed shape, in a sense, in every form that you can fathom. And this is what they're doing on a regular basis. They want to preserve the planet, but if we're going to start screwing things up, they're going to start collecting things, and that's
okay.
What
was it your impression that really was a demonstration of a sense of humor, or do you just think they wanted to test your heart?
I'd say it was a sense of humor, and their sense of humor, too. We have social graces, too, because I asked them, why do you have to abduct me? Come over and say we're here, or hi, hello. You want to join us or something, and that's all they had to say telepathically was we're here, and drop me back down in the bed safely. And then, this was a 3 or 4 month campaign that was going on, and I was some neat stuff that started taking place. And so now it was a week or so later, and I'm driving along in my I had a little Toyota pickup at the time, and I had a couple of dogs that were my best friends. And one lived for 21 years, and the other one lived for 15 years. And I still grieve when I think about them from time to time. But you know how that is with animals.
Yes, I do.
And so anyway, they were in the bed of the truck, and I was going down the highway, and now I see what I thought, and here again, this is a science that they do, because they do these things under our noses completely. I don't care how good our technology is, all the defensive detecting systems that we have, they can come in and out of our skies, and there's nothing we can see. And it's something I think I learned is they transmit things, so the mind or the brain and the machines can't pick things up, even the mind. And here's a perfect example. I'm driving down the highway, and the technology is so wondrous. I see in front of me, which it didn't make any sense at all, about maybe far less than a quarter of a mile. They have diamond-shaped ships. I call them diamond-shaped. It's like a pyramid on the top and a pyramid on the bottom. And I see one of these things, and where the bottom of it is, the top of it is going through the road and through the across the road onto the other side into a field. Wow! And so I know it's not paving a big crater into the road, because everybody would know, but that's the way it came across. And I took my foot off the accelerator, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then I thought go into the sky, and then it was in front of me in my car. So I pushed down hard on the accelerator and tried to follow it. And the faster I went, the faster it kept going back. And the more I slowed down, the slower it went. It only wanted me to get so close. And then this is where I got the term the keepers. The keepers. And as it was hanging in the sky, I could see they transmitted these thoughts and pictures in my mind, and clearly it was there to see. The ship, it was in all its glory, and it was phenomenal. And and what I could see was a Judapeg of things. I could see the seeds they were collecting. I could see the plant life they were collecting. I could see the seedlings. I could see the trees, the little baby trees, the saplings, and all of this stuff. And then the message was, the keepers are here. And they refer to it as their people for whatever reason. The keepers are here to take their people home to a better place, not a different world. I expect them to say world. So that's where I got the name the Keepers, and that's what they referred themselves to. So now I got a name finally, because I'm saying, who are you, where are you from, what are you doing, why are you here? They wouldn't tell me for all these years. And here I am now, 6 years, 7 years, 8, 9, 10 years later. Now I got a couple of things. So we got social graces. We say we're here, and by the way, we're the Keepers. That's what they refer to themselves as.
All right, a real quick question, and that is, you said they were collecting plants and samples of this and that. Did they collect any living samples? I mean, we've had so many reports of cattle mutilations, that kind of thing. Were they doing any of that?
In that particular, what I got to see, and only what I got to see, I can only move on to, which all I could see was biological. I mean, plant life. Primarily biotics, plant life.
All right. I don't want to lead you into saying anything. Your story is what it is, and so fine.
And so that was another. Then, and another thing I used to complain about, and was the fact, how come other people see what I'm seeing? I'm the only one that gets to see this.
Well, based on what you've told me so far, this is me again, but based on what you've told me so far, Jim, it sounds to me as though they needed assistance from a human, and they went to the trouble to train you, but that is not what they were trying to do with others. Or if it is, you haven't talked about it yet. In other words, did you ever meet any others like yourself who were obviously supposed to be assistant?
Well, you know what? The person who doesn't want to come forward, and a lot of people that want to come forward, was another event, though, I should say, that took my breath away. Because in that mass abduction where there was over 1,000 people, there was a person that I assisted more than any of them there. And, you know, you can see their faces. And, you know, and anyway, I was closest to this guy because he was afraid. And I was constantly calming him in the earlier stages, before we went into the corridor, and and even after, because again the details I wrote. But anyway, when we were in the antidote, where we were in this locker room thing, he was afraid more than anybody. But he was a guy, a normal guy. But he just anyway. I communicated with him the most, and anybody in that event. And I forgot about them. I forgot all about these people. It's nothing, just, hey, if I see one. And later on, I had attended a conference where this was before I came out as a lecturer and a speaker and so forth. And I was at a conference, and I was standing outside by myself to stretch my legs. And here comes this person with one of those huge cameras on his shoulder, like a media person.
Right.
And he's walking by, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, it's that guy! That guy!"
Okay, so finally there was somebody. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. And then to watch him walk by, he stops, and the camera's rocking back and forth. And I'm going to, the camera rocks back and forth as he takes a stop, because obviously he sees me, and it occurs to him, I must know this person. And he turns around and walks up to me, and he says, "Do I know you?" And guess what I said? No.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You said
why?
No, I can't. I cannot imagine why. Why would you say no?
I didn't want to lead it to anything that can me saying that I let him, removed him in a way to say that was me. I wanted to see what he was going to say. You see what I mean? Because if I say, "Yeah, I know you. I saw you on board. You were. Yeah, I comforted you when we were in this big abduction and all this stuff right off the bat." I wanted him to tell me something. And so that's when it got interesting, because he looks at me and says, "I know you, but I just can't place where it is." And I'm biting my tongue because I know this guy. So again, he doesn't want to come forward. So he does. I can tell you some things about him, but if you pick on me to get the information, I won't do it, because I have to respect what people want. And this is a person I had to do that. But he is a media person, but he isn't a famous media person. But he works around the media, and that's why he was there. And you can put it all together in your mind. But what more could be more perfect than somebody like that, I guess, to get an environmental message, right? And so as we were standing there, make a long story short, we decided to exchange phone numbers. And then I worked. Can
I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Wasn't Pierce Morgan, was it?
If it was, I wouldn't tell you.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
So anyway, so in our conversations and over time, I let him come forward with it, and his memory started coming back. And I think they just did that for me. So now I've got a person that I can say saw things with me, and he did go into detail. And again, he doesn't want to be out in the public, but the detail he gave me was the same thing. So now I got someone like that. And then it led to another thing, where this one was interesting too. So you can see where I'm going, basically, that there's even though I'm feeling better about this, it's leading to other things that have deeper meanings.
Okay, well, I can certainly see that a media person probably wouldn't come forward, Jim, because that would be a career-ending move, almost certainly. But, oh, God, I'd like to talk to him.
Well, I mean, I have to honor his wishes, and so I have to stay there, and I have to. So I keep my word.
Understand.
Yeah, I know
understand.
you do. I know you do. And there was the different events were taking place for another demonstration of even more powerful and more. Anyway, there's another example I'd like to tell you that then led to this. Led to something. But now I was walking down the beach, and people are they're funny about seeing things, and they're afraid anyway. I was walking down the beach, and I could hear a person jumping up and down, going, "Yahoo! Yahoo! Yahoo!" screaming. He was about maybe ankle deep near the surf. It was a calm surf over there on the beach, and then there was a girl standing there too, and he's jumping up and down, "Yahoo! Yahoo!" And I'm looking at him, and then this telepathic voice says, "Look." And I looked over, and my head automatically turned where they wanted me to look, which was about 70, 80 degrees into the sky over the ocean, and there was this streak of a light that was a bright, bright light with a hue of blue that had no beginning and no end. Now, do you see light beams like that every day?
No.
No. Okay. So here's what it looked like a light beam, and it was very, very high in the sky. And this guy's yelling up and down as if he knew it was something special. It was getting him excited. And then I knew that they were going to make some kind of appearance somehow with witnesses, again, to make me feel better. I somehow knew that in my mind. They had to project it in my mind. There was a girl, and her back was facing me, and she was standing at the shoreline, too. So if you can imagine, it's two people kind of waiting on the beach, right, and I'm walking up, and I see her, and I go running up to this woman, and it's a young woman, and I go running up to her, and I go, "You're about to see something spectacular." She goes, "Yeah, I know. The sunsets here are beautiful." And I caught myself. I couldn't say that. And just as she said that, a craft appears out of the end of this, here's something that's going to tell you how gentle, I don't mean to sound mushy, but anyway, this craft appears out the end of it, but it's not taking form yet. It looks like a sphere of light, and it's sparkling, and it's vibrating in and out or reverberating in and out, and it's not taking form. And then it finally takes form way, way up until, again, one of those pyramid-shaped crafts that I talked about. It was like a pyramid upside down and then one on top. I don't know if those ever been reported or you've seen them. I have seen them on the Internet, but that's what my eyes saw. And so we're both, I'm standing next to her, and we're both looking at it, and she says to me, "Is that a UFO?"
Well, you know something, Jim? A half a pyramid from the ground would sure look like a triangle. And there's something I want to tell you, and I've got a whole bunch of messages here, and this is one of them. Somebody calling themselves Lone Listener. The planet is dying. Same thing they told me, Art. So, in other words, a number of people are reporting that they have been told this, basically the same exact thing, Jim.
And, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all because, and again, it's a message you're giving people. Actually, I'm learning over the years that it's a deeper message because I think things may coalesce one day where they may have better memories of what took place. And I think that these people may decide to do something about it. They may have been picked for that reason. I mean, it may not be random that they have them. So hopefully to turn things around.
I would say that the planet is dying is a pretty deep message all by itself. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. But, well, even with this event, I know, I've been asked in the past, do they have a spiritual side? And the only, I never, really go deep into that because I don't really see that. But what I do see per se is that they're concerned for the environment as one. So, but anyway, back to that. This craft appears out of the end of it and disappears. But this girl, unbeknownst to me, had some kind of connection with these things too. And meaning that when it disappeared, she looks at me and she doesn't know me, but she's mesmerized by it. She goes, "It's going to come back." And I said, and I knew too. I said, "Yeah, it's going to come back." And within a few seconds, it appeared no more than several hundred yards in front of us. And it was rather quite big. And now this guy's going ape. And there were no other people to see this when I was out there. It was just us three. Now I'm complaining that there's not more people. And he's going ape over it. He's yelling and screaming, but she's looking at it, and I'm looking at it. And then she puts her left hand out there, and with her finger she starts waving it in, and she softly goes, "Come on, come on, come on." And this thing started moving in closer. And I'm standing behind her, and I'm watching this, and to myself I'm going, okay, you can go away now. You can go away now. I mean, thank you for the demonstration. And then it disappears. So it either moves fast or not. So, yeah, just blinks right out of the sky. But it made me feel better. It made me feel better, you know.
All right. Hold tight. Hold tight. We're going to take a break, Jim. Jim Sparks is my guest all the way from Australia. Opposite side of the dimming globe, the smokier globe. This is Dark Matter.
The Prime Directive disallows dark matter contact with emerging AM world life forms. However, as an extraterrestrial flight, you are cleared to call 855-REAL-UFO. That's 855-732-5836.
Emerging AM life forms? Hi, everybody. My guest is Jim Sparks. He's calling from Australia. So if you notice that the line sounds a little less than usual, why, that would be the reason. All the way across the world. And unfortunately, we have no Skype connection. So back now to Jim. And Jim, you said at one point you discerned that there was a meaning even deeper than the state of our world, that our world, in effect, was dying. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure, because it just gets better and better and better, and for me, and then all these things were coming, that I wanted, and to make the relationship better, and so now I have another scenario that took place, really right on the heels of what I discussed, and this one particular pull, instead of saying abduction, just led to that, and I was at home. The usual. This time I wasn't in bed or anything. I happened to be sitting up. I was awake, and then all the sounds and the whistles that go with what we call a pull, the hard way, so to speak, started taking place. Mm-hmm. And I found myself, which was really different about it, because normally, as you heard me say earlier, when they pull me, it gets to the point where I black out and then I appear. So I know it's happening, I black out, and so at point A I black out, and point B I regain my consciousness. But in this case, particular case, they allowed me to see where the meeting place was going to be, which wasn't on board. And so when I regained consciousness, I was pretty high in the sky, and it was at night, and yet there was enough light for me to see. And below me was what I could see looked like an abandoned carnival yard where it wasn't well maintained. And I could see a semicircle of rather large alien beings that I had never seen before, because they were huge. Even from way up there, I could see they were bigger than the little grays I was talking about. And this was completely different. So now I get to see it. And as I was getting closer towards them, then I black out. When I regained consciousness, there were probably about 10 of them standing in a darker area. You could see their framework. You can see they were probably 7-8 feet tall, unlike anything I ever saw. And they were kind of scary looking at first. But then on all the years that I've been through this, I learned just don't be afraid, because, you always come back fine. And they were in the semicircle, and then the one closest to me, which I was standing outside the edge of it, they put a hologram in front of his face to make it look like a person, even though you could see the bodies were huge. And and it was kind of funny in a way, because when he was communicating, or it was communicating, the other 8 or 9 or wherever number it was that were looking at him, you could tell as if they were a group telepathic message coming from one being, as if they were looking at one, and then the one was talking, and you could see this mouth moving with the human face. And the first words were, "We would have just given it to you, but you wouldn't have understood it that way." And I knew that meant that I didn't get to have the knowledge that I know that I talk to people about. This isn't my work. I'm a business person, but I spend a lot of time doing this, and I'm in different places in the world. I'm in different places in the United States, and I spend a lot of time on this, to get out, what some of the things I'm about to go over now, what took place in that event. And they basically, I'm going to give you pieces of it that are important because it went on. This thing went on for over an hour, word for word. It got into my personal life. It was advising me on where to go with this. But the main thrust of it is that they claimed that, and I think it explains a lot, about 60, 70 years ago when we the first nukes came out.
Right.
As you probably know, that was an era where, there were a lot of down crafts. We were finding alien cadavers. There's hearsay that we, captured live aliens and all of this stuff going on, which, considering everything over the years, what I surmised that to be was that when we were exploding nuclear bombs, they were coming in from every direction, and I have a little anecdote. They were coming in so fast and so many that they were crashing into each other from time to time.
Well, we certainly do know that all of this began when we did drop the bomb, when we were testing the bomb, when we dropped the bomb. There was an immense number of UFO sightings, and as you pointed out, crashes. There were crashes. So maybe you're right. Maybe they got in each other's way.
Well, according to them, this is what took place, and I surmise it to be that period. They actually came down and did the right thing. They followed the proper protocol. They went to the government leaders of the world, and got with them and said, "This is what we think you should do, and this is why," and because they're evolved. And they gave them messages that they would like to see the human species evolve. And part of evolving is to clean up our own backyard, so to speak, so we can join the galactic neighborhood. So that's the positive aspect. That's what I mean about this. So we can be part of what this cosmos, this galaxy, this universe has to offer, because there's action going on all the time out there, and we're not a part of it. And so they said what they did was, when they came to these people, that they exchanged. We said we weren't ready. That according to them, this is what I was advised, that our people aren't ready for this and that we would need time. And so agreements were made. And according to them, there's not one single agreement that we ever kept. When I say we, I mean the people at the time in charge up to this day. They said that they wanted to stop nuclear, and I don't know why they were so specific, and biological weapons. They didn't want to see that anymore. And, we were in the forefront. So I'm talking about America. I'm talking about USA. We've seen, I can't, in my time, I've seen different people from different parts of the world, and, either Hispanic, and I've seen Asian, and I've seen, in all these abductions. So, but we were the people on top of that at the day. And in exchange, they gave technologies to better this planet. They were they could be used to clear the skies, take the toxins out of the water, just advanced stuff.
To whom was this technology given?
Well, they didn't say names, and they didn't point fingers, and they didn't say specific names. But it graduated to be what we would consider the darkest of the black op today. So those are the ones. In my experience, you've got 3 forms of government, and this is how I see it. This is how Jim sees it. We've got the government at face value, the one that we deal with every day, the general public does.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said, this is how I see it, and this is how Jim sees it. Who's Jim?
Jim is me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I thought you were referring to somebody else. Okay.
Yeah, the other Jim. Yeah. No, it's me. So I see it as how Jim sees it all these years, and I surmise it to be so, but it's sensible because you have this government that we deal with every day at face value. And that's the normal government that people deal with, and I would say that 99% of them are clueless to this. You may have 1% that knows something, but most of them don't know. And then you got what I call your second form of government, which isn't quite at the black op level. These are the ones that collect the relics, collect the down crafts, back engineer things, and from the crashes and so forth. They may even have cadavers. Who knows if they even have an alien? And they think they're on top of this phenomena, and they think that they're the top secret of the top secret. But as it goes on, you have this other group, which is the blackest op of the blackest of the blackest, and they are the ones that know everything. They're the ones who have hands-on, and those are the ones that are still communicating with extraterrestrials, in my particular case, the ones that I'm talking about. And, so there's an interaction going, and there's here's the message as it went, that when they came to people, as I said, these things later on formed. They came to the leaders, and they exchanged the technology for us to do these things, and we didn't do a single thing. And unfortunately, these were their words. That it just makes you somber, but that people have been discredited, maimed, and killed in order to keep this secret. And then they were clear to say, our hands had nothing to do with this. And they turned around to say that when they gave the technologies, what we did with it, instead of taking the technologies and removing the bombs and removing the weapons and everything, is that we made more weapons and we made money.
Well, all right, I have a comment here, Jim. If they had studied us halfway properly, they would know that giving this technology, this important earth-shattering technology to the black ops people would be the poorest decision they could possibly make.
I can understand that thinking in today's view, because back then there wasn't a black op. They were actually coming to leaders of the world, and however that these other things were formed. Now, that's totally understandable, and what you just said, but then again, you're dealing with people who have no clue about these things. Here we are in the 40s, and, that kind of stuff isn't going on, so they're only going to the heads of whoever the movers and the shakers are and the leaders of that day who are clueless to this stuff.
Yeah, but we're dealing with people that can read minds.
Yeah, well, I think what it is over the years, Art, is they want us to meet them halfway, and I think the way they are and as advanced as their cultures are, that I've figured out, and I mean it's clear to me that they just can't come at face value and it working. I think it's part of a program to get us to realize what we're doing and bring us there. Just like, these experiences have been with myself, and even they started saying we would have just given you this information, but you wouldn't have understood it that way, so I had to go through something. And I think in the bigger picture, they have us to go through things. And it's a positive thing, even though a lot of negative things take place for positive things, because human beings, we're not, we mess up. And
okay,
so
but I mean, really, we were told, Jim, to be wary of the military-industrial complex, right? And that's who they gave it to.
They gave it to, I don't know if it was particularly military at the time, but it has become something like that to this day, and we all know that. And they're saying that people were hurt for this reason. Now, here's what they expressed, and then you can, you can use this how you see fit. Because I come across, I'm not a journalist, but I come with a journalism perspective in a sense that I can only tell you what I see. I'm not a scientist, but I do take a logical science point of view, and I like to see this stuff as technology and science, so I don't get caught up in, it may be demons, this, that, and all this other stuff that comes out because it's proven itself to be not.
Yeah, you can only say what you know. Yeah.
And so, with that being said, the technology was used for these reasons. Now, what they're claiming is that there's over the years, that there's a majority, there's a growing number in these groups that would like to come out with this information. that hoard this information. And but it's a simple thing. And according to them, they're afraid. And they're afraid because crimes against humanity have been committed. And if you come out and say, okay, we have these things and we'd like to come forward with some of them, and the things that they did to keep it secret, they're obviously going to go to jail, and who knows, they may be prosecuted, and they could even possibly be executed for the crimes against humanity. They're afraid. And so they advised a simple word, which is called amnesty.
Amnesty.
Amnesty. And
in what context?
Well, it's not for spiritual purposes, but for practical purposes, create an avenue for these people to come forward and not be prosecuted.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
The people that were given the information.
Yeah, and to this day, what we're doing to keep it secret. And it's tied to a lot of things, and all these things have to be figured out. So, in my sense of it, that to me, amnesty is obviously a law that needs to come into effect, and it's a law that's a high law, a high law in our government. That if whoever comes forward with it can't be, they can't.
Well, all I can say is you better get the Australian government interested in this whole thing and offer amnesty, because we can't even agree on a budget back here. Well,
anyway, I like to see us be in the forefront, which is America, because I'm an American. I guess I'm a little one-sided about that. I can't help myself. I'm not, that's, you know what I mean. But, and so, that's what they put out for that to happen in order for these things to come out. And so now, we've got different campaigns going on, which make things very difficult for this. And I think, we all want to see disclosure, and disclosure is something where they can come forward. But I think you can work hand in hand with the disclosure movement, with the amnesty movement, because disclosure is saying we want the answers, but in a sense, I don't think they're going to say everything. And I think amnesty would, create that. And,
sure.
And that's the meaning behind it. So that's the message I give as I go all over the place for the amnesty.
All right, well that makes sense. But again, I'm very concerned. We're in a country right now that's basically, the only word I can think of is dysfunctional. Maybe that will change, Jim, but I'm less hopeful every day.
Well, I understand it's a mess. It's a mess. Nobody can argue that. Definitely.
Did they tell you anything else that would be useful? Like, for example, our planet's dying. Are there timelines? Is there anything else we can know about how long we might have?
Well, they don't give dates. They don't say times to me. They haven't at this point. Mm-hmm. And if they did and they wanted me to tell people, I would. But I don't know of anything like that. But I can tell you that they give hints and tips of things to come, which are neat. I think if we can get the information out like they wanted us to do 60, 70 years ago, that, this world would be beyond our imagination and would solve a lot of problems. And, so, I mean, there's been, it would resolve a lot of problems. Anyway, so some of the tidbits, that have taken place that are kind of neat is, as time has gone on and over the years, my interaction with these beings are completely different. And now I've learned that there are campaigns which things are taking place right out, from under our noses, so to speak. And I get involved sometimes with them. And one of which is one of my favorite ones, is that they actually, there are human beings who are raised somewhere else. They're not.
All right. Here's a question for you that was bound to come, Jim, and people reflect back on the box that you talked about, and they ask, do you have any physical proof of all that happened to you, or anything that happened to you? Was there any physical anything?
They don't let me take anything back with me.
Didn't think they would.
So, yeah, and that's the way I have to go forward with it. And so, yeah, no, they don't.
Okay. All right. Hold on, Jim. What I want to do here is I want to open the phone lines. This is not going to be easy. I want the audience to be able to ask questions, but because of the nature of the connection that we've got to Australia, it's not going to be easy. So I'm going to take a little bit of an early break here. And, boy, that's a weird noise, isn't it? So if you want to call, the lines are now open. We're going to open them all and begin to take questions. That is the number. Now, I sort of want to lay this out for you. Because of the nature of the phone connection that we've got with Jim to Australia, you're going to have to, Jim, you're going to have to be quiet while I take the question. And then, caller, you're going to have to get the question out right at the beginning, just sort of issue the question, and then I'll leave the line. And Jim will answer the question. It'll have to be sort of a cooperative venture here if we want it to work well because of the nature of the phone connection. I'm sure you can all hear that. So here we go. Let's take a call right up front and say hello. You're on the air with Jim Sparks. Hello. Let's see. That would be in Mississippi. Patrick. Patrick, are you there? Going once, going twice, gone. All right, let's go to Canada and John. Are you there, John? It looks like not. Hello, John. Are you there? John in Canada. John in Canada. No. Okay, maybe we've got something going on here. Let me try one more. Let's go to Arizona and Beverly. Beverly, you're on the air with Jim Sparks. Maybe. You're not on the air. That's interesting. Okay, folks. Well, something's going on with our connection here, obviously, and I'm not sure what's going on. Let's try again. Arizona, Beverly, are you there? Okay. Let's check a connection here. I love this. I love it. Okay, let's go to here. And try it again. Arizona, Beverly, are you there? No, you're not, but I'm going to keep trying. Sorry about this, folks. It happens. Let's go to Illinois and say, Gary, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, Gary.
Yes.
Good. What kind of, hopefully you have a question for Jim Sparks.
Yeah. Do you know the book, I believe it's William Cooper, or Behold the Pale Horse?
Oh, yes. Cooper, yes.
Yeah, a lot of that coincides with what he, said in the book, which I got on DVD and listened to it. I'm a truck driver, of course. And about the aliens coming in back in Eisenhower or whatever, and coming in and, we've been interacting with him ever since then, and it's been all hush-hush. But a lot of that kind of coincides with what he's been talking about tonight. So I'm just, wow.
It sure does, Gary. All right, let's put it to him. Jim, he's right. There have been many that have carried similar messages, right?
And, well, actually, judging from what I've seen, there's no doubt. I mean, as far as I know, I'm one of the few, and I don't want to say the only one because I don't have a big ego. I don't have an ego here whatsoever. But as far as I know, I'm probably one of the few human beings on the planet that, I can see these beings face to face, and they communicate with me. And, as I was mentioning earlier, that, hey, this has been going on over 20 years, and it took years for me to be able to understand their nature. I mean, just simple things about them is they don't like questions. They only want to tell you things when they want you to know it, and it's not that they're the Gestapo, so to speak, but I'm constantly really, really very careful when I think about a question I might have, so I know that I can come up with something positive. So, it doesn't surprise me that other people have experience in this. So, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
All right. Let's go to Daniel in Indiana. You're on with Jim Sparks. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Art?
Just fine, sir. Go ahead.
I was wondering, are the aliens or the Greys, for say, unisex?
Actually, that's a pretty good question. How about it, Jim? Are they unisex or what?
I've never seen any genitalia. And that's one thing I can say. But meaning that I have seen them, one has to wonder if they're wearing something skin tight, which I don't think it is. I think they go around with no clothes. And the Greys just don't have clothes on, the ones that I've seen, and I have never seen genitalia. But now this is something that's taken many years, that I've always felt like I was dealing with the male of the species. All this time. And there was one particular event, and one particular event only, where I saw a Gray that definitely had feminine features, meaning that it was thinner. It telepathically came across softer. It touched me in a gentle way, and I thought it was a she. So how they, reproduce, I have no idea. And so,
but nothing obvious.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay, here we go again to Los Angeles and Mark. Hi.
Hello, Jim. This is very interesting content you've been putting out here tonight, and it rings true for me. So if it is true, it strikes me that disclosure is a huge thing. And it would clean up, if we could get the technologies to clean up the planet and get affordable energy, this is huge, right? So why not start negotiating with these guys and bring in more people and just bypass the leadership of the planet because they're belligerent, right? Get people to go with you. I would go. Could you do this? Could you work on different ways to communicate with these guys and perhaps start introducing a mass of people down here to them?
Jim?
Well, I like that question, and the depth of these beings is still beyond a lot of my comprehension. But and yet, there's a connection there that signals to me why they're doing it the way they're doing it, and which is they would like to see us meet them in the middle, so to speak. So it's not as such as to take over the planet, so to speak. So they want to meet us in the middle, and part of that meeting in the middle is they want to see us move forward. I think, and as you said, it's a fantastic thing with disclosure. If we can get the disclosure, we can get the amnesty, full amnesty, where they can come forward. I think, that would break ground beyond anything, because now you've got the people who are there. Here's how I see it: you've got people who are hands-on. They know as much as this technology as the aliens have given them, and they're keeping this stuff, they're hoarding this stuff, they're keeping it to themselves. So if you can imagine how it would bypass all the red tape and all the bureaucracy and all the other things that go on with government control, so to speak, even though it would be law, I think amnesty should be a law in effect to protect them. Then they're going to say, hey, we've got this apparatus and we've got this one, and this one can do this, and we can travel from point A to point B. We can transverse the universe with little to no time passing, and we can do these wondrous things with energy and all the things that can come out. So there's probably a lot of thought in their mind behind it that I'm sure that there is.
All right. Listen, your story is absolutely incredible. It's detailed, and if you're making it up, it's just beyond me how you would make this up, period. But I've got a question for you. It's not a rude question, Jim, just a question. Would you take a lie detector test?
Well, no one's ever asked me that. I have nothing to hide there, so I don't think that a lie detector test would say that I was lying or not telling the truth, to answer your question.
That doesn't answer my question. In other words, look, what you're saying is so important to the world, so important to people. And people are sitting out there digesting what you're saying tonight and probably saying, it sounds good, it sounds right. But if you came back with the results of a lie detector test and it said you were being truthful, boy, oh boy, would that, add a gigantic weight to your story.
Well, I wouldn't object to it. And, this is how I always come out with this. I know that what I have to say there's going to be a tremendous amount of people, and this is what I've learned over the years.
Right.
You're going to have people that are going to throw, eggs and tomatoes at you.
Oh, yes.
Say this is phooey. And
well,
actually,
you know the story, right, about incredible claims and all that? Requiring incredible. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I respect a lot of that because it wasn't too long ago. Well, it's been a long time now that I would have been the same way until it happens to you. And so, but what has surprised me over the years is that it's kind of a popular thing to have me when I speak, because I'm finding out that people aren't as critical as I thought they would be, and they're not coming out that hard. So, almost all the time, I'm going to get
No, Jim, it's a good message. It's an important message, and as I said, it would add a lot of weight to what you're saying. Tony, in Utah, you're on with Jim Sparks. Hello.
Hello, how you guys doing tonight?
Really well.
Okay. I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and I've got a couple questions. One for Jim. When was the last time that you went up?
Okay, we're not going to be able to do this multiple question stuff, but let's have them at. When was the last time that you were pulled?
Well, the interaction has been going on up to the last few months, so it's a regular thing. It's not the same anymore. Look, I don't want to sound like I'm plugging the book. I am plugging the book in a lot of ways, and I just want to get this out now.
Go plug the book. I don't care.
Okay. If you go onto my website, it's jim-sparks.com, and you look up for listeners of the Art Bell Show. And when I wrote this work in much, much more detail than I have in a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours to talk about it. And it goes into those things in much more graphic detail. And that way, a lot of these questions can be answered. And that's the reason I wrote The Keepers. And I wrote The Keepers in a way that as if it were you. And what would you do? And then you get to see what I do. And so that's the best. Yeah, that's the best thing I can do with that.
All right.
I have one more question. One more question. Is there a way that you could recommend that they visit other people, other humans, and that because I'm pretty sure that there's quite a few, myself included. I can speak for myself. I would like to experience something like that.
Okay. It is a kind of a neat question, I guess. What do you think, Jim? If somebody actually wants to be abducted or wants to have an experience as you have had, is there a way for that to happen?
This is the only thing that I know, that they pick you, and I haven't seen it any other way where you can pick them. Not to say that this doesn't go on. I can only talk within the scope of my experience.
All right, that's good enough. Let's go to Indiana and Drew. Hi, Drew.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Many Roswells to you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's kind of a dark question. I apologize, but I feel like it's worthy of asking. From the show about 2 weeks ago, there was something being talked about an insectoid race that was supposedly hostile, and I just wondered if he had experienced anything like that. And I'll take my question off the air. Thank you.
All right. No, it's a totally reasonable question. Jim, have you experienced anything other than the Greys and anything specifically that's hostile?
I can speak about another species other than the Greys, because better than 95% of interaction has been with Greys, and then there's this other species that have scales. Now, then people turn around and tell me, well, those are the reptilians. Okay, and then I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're reptilian or not. They just have scales on their skin. And those interactions are far and few between, and that's the only two that I've seen. So I can't speak for any others.
Okay, well, it sure sounds reptilian. So I'll join that echo, I guess. All the way to Tennessee, and Jack, you're on with Jim.
Yeah, I was just calling because I think I've had the same sort of kind of experience, but I've got some kind of technology that it might be good with Jim on about travel. I know a lot of people are going to think this is crazy, but on travel it's hard to explain. But like everybody talks about the UFO sightings, how there's no sound. Well, I've sort of come up with a thing with light, travel with light, but I didn't know where to ever go with this thing here. I've had it for a while, but I didn't know if because I think there's keys to exactly what he's talking about, because I know what he's talking about, that everybody's planted with a key that was on this situation, but I've been implanted or something with a key of travel by using light.
Okay. Do you know anything at all about implants, Jim?
Oh, only what you know and I know. And I've never seen anybody implanted with anything. And to my knowledge, I don't have any implants in me.
Okay. Do you know of implantation? In other words, you have seen them gathering samples, and presumably you've seen them doing a lot of things as many times as you have been pulled, to use that term. So you've never seen them doing operations on people, nothing about implantation.
I've never seen them cutting into people ever before. And, this is something I do know and inherently know, that they can find whoever they want. And I think they obviously have the power to have this sort of information in a powerful way, in technology, where they can pluck anybody that they keep a record of. And how they do it and how they keep record of it is beyond me, because I haven't been shown how.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to Patrick in Mississippi. You're on the air with Jim Sparks in Australia.
Hello, Art. How you doing? Been a big fan of you ever since your Coast to Coast days.
Thank you.
I just wanted your guest to clarify on something he said a few segments back pertaining to the beach and the sighting in the sunset. He had said that there were a couple of people on the beach with him, but right before that he had said that there was a concert and that there were more people and the guy was cheering for the concert. So I wanted him to kind of clarify that, because it didn't go with what he was saying.
Okay. Jim?
Oh, well, yeah, I can clarify that now. What I did say was I wish that there were more people around other than those people, that I was hoping that there would be a lot more people, and I kind of laughed about it because, here I am asking, I would like someone to witness this with me because it would make me feel better as a human being, and they did just that. So there wasn't any more.
Okay. Very good. Okay. 855-REAL-UFO is our number if you have a question for Jim. We're going to, let's see, I'm not sure where we're going here. Hello there. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi. You're on the air.
Hi. Minnie Roswell, so you are.
Thank you.
I've just got two quick questions, and then I'll slip out of there because I know other people want to call. One question is, I was wondering what their life expectancy was, and the second question is, do they communicate with, in other languages? And I'll leave it at that and let him answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Life expectancy.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I can't say, but I can say from what I believe to be so. So let me clarify that I believe that they probably have figured out a way to conquer dying. And that's just me saying I believe it. They've never come across and say that we don't die, we never die, or anything like that. But judging from everything I've seen, Art and whoever's listening out there, I think that's very, very a possible thing that they've conquered death. And I think that in itself would be so phenomenal, if that's the case, for us to be able to have a gift like that, to have the technology to know how to do that.
All right, how about language?
Well, this is language, and let me finish the statement. What I know about them is that their minds can think 10 to 100 times faster, and they have to store a lot of knowledge. And they just see things changes, and they see species move and everything like that, and they got so much information. And so, again, if we can go on living, we can learn from a lot of mistakes. And as far as language, it kind of broke up on that last part of the language question.
Well, do they use any other languages? I would imagine with telepathy it doesn't matter.
I haven't ever heard one speak, and it's only been in English in my mind. Whether they use it on other people, I can't say for sure. Maybe they hear it in their language. I would think they do.
I would imagine telepathy isn't really dependent on language, period. All right, you know what? I'm going to try Skype. I've got Andrew on my Skype line. Are you there, Andrew?
I am, Art. It's good to be back on the show. Long time no speak.
Where are you?
I'm in Australia. I spoke to you yesterday.
Yeah, that's right, of course. All right, well, it's Australia and then back to Australia. How weird is that?
That's right. I just wanted to ask your guest, how long was the longest period of time he ever spent with them? And if he did they feed him? Did he need to go to the bathroom? Just regular stuff like that.
Okay. Longest period of time. Thank you very much, Andrew, by the way. Longest period of time.
Many hours at times. And no, I never got to use the bathroom because I never got the urge to use the bathroom for whatever reason it may be. And as far as what was the other point in the question? It was the bathroom and something else. No, but I would certainly like to see what the food would be like. But no, they've never offered any food.
Could you give us an idea of the kind of time that these pulls involved?
Some of them over the years, particularly in the early years, I would say had gone well over 6 hours. 7 hours, well over 6 hours. And those are not the normal. And that was in the early stages when they were working on me hard and, to learn what they were. And so, yeah, I was gone a pretty long time. I mean, if you can imagine 6 hours to most people, to me and you, would seem like probably 25,
it sure would.
The circumstances, yeah.
All right, let's go to Lauren in Illinois.
Hey, what's going on,
Well, at the moment, you are.
Oh, that's it. Roswell to you, pal, and hello, Jim.
Okay, he's not going to be real responsive. Just go ahead and ask your question.
I was wondering if Jim ever had experience where the Greys made him move objects with his mind, like telekinesis or whatever, and if he got it wrong, was there any repercussions like headaches or pain or anything like that?
That's two questions. Something about headache and pain?
Oh, no, I was talking about did they ever make him do any tests where he was moving any objects with his mind?
Okay, yeah, I got that. I got that.
And if there was any...
hold on a moment, please. Telekinesis. Jim, did you observe anything moved with the power of the mind?
Yes. I can say yes to that because there was a time that they used the technology where I could use my mind to move objects, and to be specific without going into a lot of detail because it'll take too much time. On the table, it had led to this. It was working with their technology through their minds into my minds to actually do things, and it was fun. These are the kind of experiments they worked with, and these are the things they showed me. Anyway, it crescendoed to this. There was something the size of bigger than a marble, an object the size of a little bit bigger than a marble, like a ball, a small ball, a cube about the same size, 4 sides to a cube, square, and regular square. Anyway, and a pyramid-shaped object, the same size. And so when I was learning, what they wanted me to do was move the objects on the table through their ways of doing things. And I found it easier to roll the ball. It was phenomenal. So I just think the ball rolling, and I look at it, and the ball would roll back and forth. What was interesting was when it got to the square or the cube, it took more mental focus on my part, and I don't know if they were doing that to whatever reason. And it was the same thing with the pyramid, because that had to go end over end, if you can imagine that. So
exactly. No, a ball makes sense. It's easier to begin to get to move from a force point of view. Lauren, anything else?
Well, it's funny that he said that because, see, I had a friend that always talked about dealing with aliens and something like that, and he always talked about moving something in a box. He had these dreams. His dad had these dreams that went back from, like, his families, and he was talking about moving this, like, liquid, metal liquid or some kind of substance in this box. And if he got it wrong, they would give him headaches and stuff like that. And,
I see.
And he told me that if I ever had a chance to call for him, do it, and I thought this was the perfect chance to do it.
Okay. Jim, it sounds like others really have had very similar experiences to yours.
And yeah, over the years, I definitely have picked up on that. Definitely.
All right, to Canada up north, and John.
Hello, yeah, just a quick question there for your guest there, Jim. Good day, Mike. Did you ever ask them by chance, because I know I would, if they had any hands in the pyramids or the Aztec lines, evidence of them being here?
Okay, did they have any hand in the construction, the design, whatever, of the pyramids?
They've never informed me of that type of information.
Okay. Well, there's your answer. If Jim doesn't know, I guess he's just not going to make it up, and that's a good thing because some guests do that. So it's a good test. Arizona brings Tom. Tom, hello.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm sorry if this has already been answered, but I was just wondering what effect this had on your marriage. How does your wife feel about your abductions?
Very good question.
Well, I'm no longer married. Definitely in those early years, it had a devastating effect on my marriage. And she tolerated quite a bit with it, considering the nature of it. And then she became okay with it over time, over years, and we are divorced. But our divorce isn't the reason for our divorce has nothing to do with these experiences.
Fair enough. You know, I kind of like your answers, Jim, or maybe I'm saying this to the audience more than I am to you. I kind of like your answers. Florida brings Andy. Andy, hello.
Hi. I have a quick question. With his abductions that he's gone through over the period of years, how does the story compare with Travis Walton, with the fire in the sky, when his abduction happened there? And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
All right. Well, I interviewed Travis Walton extensively. I don't know, Andy, or rather, Jim, whether you heard any of those interviews, and if so, and or read the book, can you comment?
Well, I mean, I know of Travis Walton because being on the lecture circuit, I've seen him. He spoke with me briefly, just passingly. He was a gentleman. He said a few things to me, and a lot of it wasn't even related to what had gone on with him. And I guess he kind of felt like the same way I did at the time because we were really, really busy. The brief time that he was kind of just wanting to say hello to me and me say hello to him. And that's been my experiences with Travis.
Okay, but no elements of his story that you're aware of coincide so much with what you experienced.
Well, I can't say that it's the same, but obviously, what I know of, and you probably remember, Art, I do my best not to cloud my information that I've gotten directly with other work, even though I have to suffer.
Right, and I really appreciate that, Jim. It adds to your credibility.
And so, I mean, I know of, when you're at a conference that he was, the things that everybody knows. He was out there. They were workers, and something happened, and he got put in the ship, and he was gone for a while. And then I guess they thought he was gone for good, and then he came back and reappeared, and that's what I know about Travis.
Well, yeah, the details of the actual abduction itself and the ship are pretty, I guess the word might be gruesome. It was pretty gross, kind of. All right, hold tight, Jim. We'll be back. We're going to break here. I played this so I would remember to ask Jim the following question. Jim, I wonder, before going back to the lines very quickly, we don't have much time left, actually, was there any sense ever given to you of a religion, worship, any sort of concept of God or a maker of any kind? It's a pretty important question.
Well, that is an important question, and the answer is no. And that's all I know about that. And it's never been brought up to me, and I haven't asked. So maybe until then, I could sure share it with you if I can get into that depth with them further.
If you have the opportunity, I would love to have that question put to them. And since you still get abducted from time to time, or pulled, as it were, perhaps you can ask all the way to Canada, and Mike. Mike, you're on the air.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Terrific. Mister there, I got a question for you there. In regards to the aliens, when you said that their message was to clean up our planet so that it's dying, did it ever occur to you that it's possible they might be trying to do the same thing in the background without our knowledge?
What are you saying, that they are actually cleaning up our planet?
Yeah, like in the background, like when we can't see it, they're kind of helping us along.
Boy, one would hope. Jim, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I know that they would like to see us come to a point where it would be in conjunction with them, so to speak, because of the technologies that would be given. And that's the best that I can answer that question.
Okay. Colorado and Lynette. Lynette, hi there.
Hello, Art. I wanted to ask Jim if he could remember what the room on this ship felt like, or what the walls felt like, or what kind of sounds they heard. Was it a metal sound to the room, or any of that?
Okay, sort of a contextual question. Jim?
Well, what comes to my mind first off is the air filtration system in the room, and it was not consistently circulating fresh air at all times. So in the room, meaning that it would start to get a little bit warm and a little bit almost like a dampish feel. It may be from exhaling, not to say that I was starving for breath, and I wasn't. And then there would be a whish of fresh air coming into the room, and it would be cooler and a lot more comfortable. So that I can say for the feel of the room.
Okay, what about smells? If the air circulation was lacking at some point, there must have been occasionally smells. Do you recall anything?
Well, I mean, I think a little bit of my perspiration was there, and of course, when I described the black box, the gift, right, and that terrible stench that came out of it, but that's the reason, because extracting that kind of garbage and toxins out of your lungs, obviously, it's going to smell terrible.
You bet. How are your lungs now, Jim?
Well, actually, they're in pretty good shape. I can't complain. So
you, I take it that you grasped the opportunity with clean lungs to cast away the cancer space.
I don't smoke as much as I used to.
As much?
Yeah.
Okay, well, missed opportunity. All right, to Michigan, I guess, now, and John.
Art, nice to talk to you. How are you tonight?
I'm just fine, thank you.
I've got a question, I guess, maybe for Jim and for you, I guess. This is something that happened to me, but he had made mention about fish scales, correct? Was it like skin, or was it something he saw?
Well, he said scales. He mentioned another breed or another type that had scales.
This just a quick story of something that happened to me, and I'm on a riding lawnmower, and I see this fish scale kaleidoscope in front of me, and then it takes over my vision. I try to get rid of this, whatever it is in front of me. I jump off my riding lawnmower, and for whatever reason, this took over my vision. And then there's no recollection of time from when I walked back from my riding lawnmower to my house, which my house is 200-300 yards away from where I was mowing the lawn.
John, we're so out of time. You probably should have tried to mow it down. I'm sorry, we've got to leave you at that point. So one last, perhaps, let's go all the way to New York, back to the East Coast. Mike, you're on the air very quickly.
I just wanted to know, did they ever give him any idea of where they're from, any visuals or anything?
Okay, fair enough. Any idea of the third planet to the right, Zeta Reticuli, whatever?
No, they never once gave me a pinpointed a place that they're from. And I know they have technology that uses other dimensions to travel and move around in, as I mentioned earlier, and that may be a different space and time, but they've never come forward to me to say we're from some particular point in some place in space.
All right, book plug time. I want to give you a chance to plug your book. It's only fair. The title of your book is?
The Keepers. And
get it where?
You can get you only want to go to jim-sparks.com. And the reason I say that is because if you go to jim-sparks.com. A lot of the funds go to me spreading the word about this alien message, and anything I can get from it, that's what I do with it. So any other method is a little harder on me. But, you know, you get it wherever you can. But that's the book, The Keepers, and it's on jim-sparks.com.
All right. Well, you were really a trooper to come on from Australia. I can wish we had a better connection, but here in the latter part of the show, it wasn't all that bad, Jim. So, again, as always, thank you so very much for coming on the program. And, boy, that's some detailed story you've got there, buddy.
Well, thank you, Art, and the pleasure has been mine to be a guest on your show.
Good night. Or good day, I guess it would be, in that part of the world. Well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting program indeed, and we're going to be getting all the information from Tobias Griff, all the really good info that he promised he would keep just for us. Tobias Griff, tomorrow on Dark Matter. For tonight, ciao, baby.